Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do appreciate you for tuning on in on a wonderful Sunday afternoon here as we bear our way into spring and get to spring, and that means we're that much closer to summer, and that much closer to summer, that much closer to fall and football. But we are in the druthers, as it were, of the off season, and we are now waiting about 3 weeks out here from the draft, and we're a couple weeks out from really free agency. And so there isn't as much going on activity-wise or discussion or talk, and it is now a little bit more in just to looking towards the draft and some of the prospects and what the Hawks might look to do there. There is a little bit of an interesting part of this, though, that I find in looking at the situation over the top of everything at play, and that is the current situation of where the Seahawks find themselves from a flexibility standpoint and moves they could make and could roll out to what they could not do, and it's a little bit about patience or aggressiveness. And I'm going to get into all this as we kind of unpack this a little bit. But it starts with the Seattle Seahawks and their cap situation. And currently right now with your Seattle Seahawks, they're sitting with the fifth most amount of cap space at $36 million, which is a significant amount at this point in time when so many people down there lower on this list are so much less. And when you consider these amounts, consider a lot of these teams that have the 12, 13 million, that's the money they got to spend pretty much. That's draft picks, that's reserve funds. So the Hawks sitting on this kind of money is substantial. And now it does bear to mind, though, what do they intend to do with all that cap space? What's going to go on? Because we had to wait a couple of days for the Kupp and the Darnold deal and even the Lawrence thing to all come into play so we could learn out what the numbers were. But you've got this money now. What does it stand pat to do? Does it make sense to try to make an aggressive trade, to go get a guy like a Wyatt Teller with the Cleveland Browns? So a lot of people feel like the Browns are going to look to move Teller, save some money on that deal, try to get themselves cap-wise into a better position, especially after just signing Tevin Jenkins. So maybe there's a possibility of making that type of deal or that type of move. When you do look at the free agents that are out there and that are available right now at the given positions the Seahawks could want, there's not a lot really available there. And here's the current kind of depth chart. John's done a relatively reasonable good job here, I think, of setting the stage here for this draft to go for pure value, but also having things pretty well, stocked up here as things stand as it sits. So Darnold, Sam Howell, your quarterbacks are good. Your running backs are 4 deep. At wide receiver, this is where there's going to be a little bit of a hole, but you've at least set the stage a little bit with Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Cooper Kupp as far as having some depth there and it not being a huge, horrible need walking in this draft. Noah Fant, A.J. Barner, your 2 tight ends, solidly set. Fant's a guy that I think if they do go draft a guy that's an H-back type that really fits to what he does, mainly they might look to kind of move on from him or restructure his deal. But the team also went out and signed an Eric Saubert, who's a low-end kind of contractual guy as a tight end to bring in as that third tight end here. And that gives them also even a little bit of some flexibility coming into this draft that's very heavily weighted with really, really good tight ends to be able to have the opportunity then to not have to grab one if they don't, especially if they have a better value to a different position with some of those picks. So tight ends good, tackles same way, Cross, Josh Jones, Abraham Lucas, and Michael Jarrell. It doesn't prevent them from drafting another tackle, but you're going to rock with 2 on each side of this going into the season, so you're pretty good there with what you've got. You're not having to go address that in this draft. We know we're 3 deep at right guard. We're 2 deep at the center, depending on if Haynes can be a guy that kicks in and out. That might almost give you kind of quasi-3 at both the guard, right guard, and center position. Left guard right now is a complete hole. They've got Christian Haynes listed there, but there's no way he's going to be playing that, so you're needing to need 2 deep there. That's the one position offensively. But it stands out offensively solely as the one that you need to address and double dip down on, where there's so many of these other ones offensively, they're actually in pretty good shape. I know we want to get the interior of the line notwithstanding better developed. Defensively, you're stacked up 3 deep with your 3 techs between Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, Cameron Young. I don't know what we're going to really get out of that guy as far as a long-term nose tackle goes. We'll have to see there. All of these guys listed as nose are probably big-time question marks / guys not likely to be part of the team in the long term. Edge, you feel pretty good about. You're 4 deep there with Demarcus Lawrence signing. You still have Mike Morris kicking around as that 5th guy on the edge of things. Doesn't like the tackle position, prevent them from drafting a guy in the upcoming draft, but it speaks to where the depth is and that it's not, this is where you want to be going into the draft. You're not driven by so many needs because when your roster is peppered with holes, those holes then have to then be addressed one by one in the draft, and you end up usually doing it early when that's the case. Tyree Snyder, Ernest Jones, locked in, dead set at the inside linebacker position. Patrick O'Connell, Drake Thomas, Josh Ross. You could certainly look to upgrade a little bit of the backups there, but your starters are set. Reek Woolen and Josh Jobe. Reek going into the final year of his contract. Josh also on a 1-year deal. The team did sign Shamar John Charles from the Saints. Not a real long-term option guy. That's just a body to fill out. That's kind of like an Artie Burns 5th, 6th cornerback on your roster that you just want to stack in there. So this is another one like left guard where you might be looking and needing a little bit of a double dip. I know we have Nehemiah Pritchett also here on the roster, but I think that there is a bit of a question with him too, because he did not play particularly well in that final game of the season against the Rams. And so that is another spot that does kind of maybe jump out here. And these are positions I mentioned as well that, okay, these may, to me, when I look at left guard or when I look at the corner, 2 positions that stand out that John probably will try to address in some way on one of those 1-year kind of deals or maybe a trade to make sure that he's not driven as heartily in the draft having to pick him as he kind of would have to be right now as it sort of stands. It's dead set at cornerback as far as our nickel back is concerned, obviously with Devin Witherspoon, though obviously there's also some more room for getting some depth there in addition to it. So how does the free agent class look right now? What do we got left to pick from as far as availability goes? Well, let's start with that cornerback room and look at some of these guys. And I think that there's one main guy that's been talked about recently who could stand out. Rasul Douglas, guy that played for the Baltimore Ravens a couple of years ago in this defense, 30 years old, so not super old at this point. You're probably signing him on I know they got the average value on this one sort of around $7 million, sounds about right. Probably 1 year, $6 million deal. Stephen Gilmore, the ageless one at 34 and a half years old, 13 years in the league. Still out there playing pretty good football at this point in time. I think Mike Hilton is more slot-centric kind of corner, so probably not as much on the radar here. And nor would I think much of these other guys would be very tantalizing options. Shaquille Griffin's going to be more of an off-cover, zone cover corner. We know that in his time here. Tre'Davious White's got a fork sticking out of his back. And most of rest of these other guys probably wouldn't be much of a target. The one interesting guy that stands out that has not been getting much heat at all, maybe it's just because of his injury situation, is Asante Samuel Jr. This is the guy that, to me, of a cornerback, him or one of those other 2 at the top being Rasul Douglas or Stephon Gilmore. Getting one of those guys on a 1-year deal would make you feel really good about the cornerback room walking into the draft. Not you're prevented from grabbing one, but just that you're not driven again back to that need-based place. And then when we go back and look at the guard position, that's where it gets a little bit more dicey on this one, where Brandon Scherf is the one that stands out to many people, and rightfully so. He's played a lot of left guard in this league, 10 years, 33 years old, so very old. It's going to probably still even cost you a little bit of money on a 1-year deal. You're going to have him like Luke Jokel, 1 year, 8 kind of deal, maybe something, or maybe even 1 year, 6, something. You might get down to that. The market's kind of dipping down because we're hurriedly moving through wave 3, and you're not seeing a lot of guys getting a lot of money at this point. Now, there are a lot of teams to spend a lot of money. But Brandon Scherf, left guard, played it relatively well, though he's been definitely going backwards. This is my issue a little bit with making the trade for Wyatt Teller as well. You're making a move for just a player that you're sort of trading for the ghost of their former selves. You know, they've gotten old. Their plays dipping down. It's not once what they were. Now, maybe they're still potentially functional, but that's what you're essentially throwing that money at, is hoping to get to functional play that you're not even sure that you're going to get. And it does stand out looking at this guard class of free agents that are left that it's weak. It's very light. It's very lean. And the answers just may not be here, and John may just come right back to saying, I'm just going to go do it in the draft. But Scherf would be the one guy, along with a Teller trade, if the Browns are open to wanting to do that. Teller does come with a little bit of a base salary hit that's pretty substantial here, but I think it's on the last year of his deal at that point. So those would be the 2 main spots. I think the rest of the spots, as far as John stands, are in pretty good shape. Could he throw a 1-year deal at this guy here, or a 1-year deal at a safety position, for instance, and look to go grab a guy like that? Yeah, maybe. As far as the safety goes, there's not a lot of guys out there, but it's a little bit, I guess, of a need. There's certainly some names out there, including Rashawn Jenkins, who maybe you can bring back on a new deal of a restructure at a veteran minimum kind of thing. Where you're like, okay, look, you realized your market's not good out there. Don't see Quandre Diggs being an available option. I don't think he as much fits to this defense at this point, nor Ryan Neal, another former Seattle Seahawk. As far as free safeties go, Marcus Williams could be an interesting guy, but that's all. You already kind of are set there with Julian Love as it is. You'd be wanting to run out a ton of three safety looks if you were going to go do that. Justin Simmons, now all fresh off of Atlanta there. Again, another guy where you've got already in Julian Love, you've kind of made your bed with that one. So for none of these free safeties are guys that do as much of the strong safety stuff. Poyer's got a background of doing that, but he is very old. Simmons has played the split safety stuff with Denver, and he did pretty well there, I will say that. But again, getting a little bit old, you're a little younger at the position. You probably feel good where you're at the position versus putting money into this. But hopefully it does stand out here with this on the depth chart side of this, of just how set Seattle is in the current construction of things. and how it's set to go here for the draft in the way that you want it to be. Because you don't just pick from value by just saying, we want to pick value-based. It doesn't work that way. You like it to work that way, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, it's got to be one where as a general manager, you've taken care of your business. You've cleaned up your backyard. You cleaned out the shed. You took care of the garage, rearranged it so that when you get into that draft, that pull back to remembering, oh man, we didn't get a corner in free agency. Oh man, we didn't get this and that. Oh man, I gotta get this thing fixed because it could be a catastrophe. We could end up with just having guys out there that are just, not even NFL players because we haven't addressed it. That pull starts to happen. And John's been able to avoid that in recent years, which is why he's had, I think, really good drafts overall over the past 3 years versus the prior 6, 7. And so this is good to see on this side of it. And one thing I want to advocate for with this cap space that we do now find ourselves sitting on at $36 million is one that may not be as much from any fan standpoint what they want to see on this. And what I mean by that is a lot of fans got blindsided this offseason by the thought that we got to 10 wins. The teams now should be good to go hit the injection button. Let's go take the doors off. Let's take the roof off. Let's go become a contender. And let's be aggressive in our moves to fit to that mentality and mindset. The team's not been as much about that this offseason. And it has been that step back that I've long talked about to where it's not that you're not potentially good next year. That potential still is there. It's not that you can't potentially be even a contender next year. That potential is there. Is it a likelihood when you have things like Vegas charting Seattle to be a last place team next year? Probably not a likelihood. Probably not necessarily where you want to put your betting money. But it can happen. It's not out of the realm of happening. But what I like about the step back and what they've done this year and setting the stage in for the future to be done right and to have things, the money to spend, the young players that you can get on extensions easily without being restricted in your cap space, and you can get them signed early if you want to get ahead of their contracts to save some things out. Just some variety of different things you can kind of do in this way to set that stage for 26, for 27. And so with that in mind, what I would advocate is for what John has talked about in recent interviews when he said that his former general manager mentor, Ted Thompson, would often tell him you want to keep your powder dry. And I would offer that right now, rather than waiting through 4 or 5 low-end, one-year deal free agents, guys at the end of their career, last legs, just squeezing those final drops from that towel. Rather than do that, you got a cacophony of picks in this upcoming draft. Make your selections, spend as little money as you possibly can, and then set up for a 3-stack of tactical decisions that you can make along the way here. You get through rookie OTAs, you get through OTAs, you get through the beginning of training camp. Now you can make your assessment about where your rookie crop is truly at, where the development has come in by these players that you got from the draft of 3 years ago on up. Have they taken that step forward? And now you can get into training camp where what we've seen in recent years is a very interesting new dynamic where players are going to get to that period and they want the new contract extensions, but they're not holding out, but they are holding in. But then a trade can be kind of driven then at that point by the player much more than people like to think of when they think of these contracts, and that the teams have that leverage to just hold them over them. And the teams don't tend to necessarily do that. Having then the money that you can go out there and jump on in a trade at that point, if something becomes available to you, I think could be a market opportunity in this situation. And then you go make that trade for that guy who's much better than a Wyatt Teller type that you're picking up right now necessarily. And you do have them then on that base salary where when we get into that future look of 26 and 27, you're not taking on necessarily future money onto the cap at that point. You're still giving yourself that flexibility in the future, but then you're also giving today a little bit more draw. You're giving today a little bit more heaping of help if you can. And if that doesn't present itself, then you go to the second part of this for me, which is the trade deadline, which then absolutely gives you even more of an opportunity and chance to be able to then look things out on this and be able to, hey, where is the team at really now? Not OTAs, not training camp. Okay, we've gotten through 5-6 games and now we've got, hey, did we start hot? As things come together for this defense? Is it dominant as a defense? And now you've got all this money that nobody else in the league is going to have, to where now you could go if you want to make a couple of targeted moves there around the trade deadline for those players. And a lot of times at that time, what prevents those trades from happening isn't that there isn't a player available or a team willing to deal, What ends up preventing those trades from happening a lot of times is that the team that wants to go get the player doesn't have the cap space to spend. Powder dry. Keep that powder dry. And then the third prong of this is if you get into training camp and you go, well, look, we feel pretty good about the team, but this is a step back year. It is a year where we're going to be good. We're 7, 8, maybe 9 wins, but we're not ready to be a contender, so let's not make moves like we're a contender. So let's wait. You get into past training camp and the trade deadline and you're 3-3 or something. Hell, we were right on our assessment back there in OTAs. We were right on the button with that one. Let's stay with this strategy. Let's stay with this tactical decision. And that doesn't mean go more for the now. That means this was a step back here. And so what we're going to do is take a little bit of that money and plow it forward a little bit here on this one. Plow it forward a little bit, and I'm advocating for the rollover. If you're not in a place of being a contender in training camp, if you can see in yourself as a team into the trade deadline that you're not ready to be a contender there, then you take this money as much as you can of it. It's not going to be all of this money that we're sitting on, by the way. And I'm not saying all that, but just as much as you can, and roll that on over into 2026. That's the way the NFL works. Unused cap space can be rolled over into the next season. The season I'm advocating for truly putting down the pedal to the metal, for being able to make a lot of aggressive moves, for being able to spend in a big manner, that you have all of your fundamentals set in, as far as the future goes, to make this move at that time. I'm saying being open to that as well on this. Doesn't mean, again, that you can't pull that lever at a couple different times here if you see something different in the team this year. There is always in my scenario here an opening to the team being good, to the team having the potential to tear the doors off and rip the roof off. Absolutely. That potential sits there, and it's readily there too. But it's just to say that you do what you've set the stage here now, carry the act out, carry the play out. And I got 3 acts on this one: the training camp look, the trade deadline look, and then just roll it over if not. And I think that they would be really well suited to kind of take this kind of approach, as opposed to being pressed a little bit to try to, throw some fill-ins onto this roster that aren't going to make a whole hell of a lot of difference. I mean, Whitehill's a right guard. I don't really see going after some Brandon Scherf at 39 years old. He's not that old, but I don't see really where the benefit would lie in going in that direction of things versus maybe being a little bit more patient on this one and sort of just you're waiting in the wings. You're waiting in the weeds a little bit. Is there some guy who becomes available but nobody thinks will become available because there's been some fracturing between the team and player, usually around some kind of contract situation? Is that going to possibly come up? Is that a potential here? And I like the thought of that powder dry and not stretching things out and letting it just kind of play out as a situation versus trying to get aggressive, because in the past, what have we seen? The team get aggressive, put the pedal down in a time when it wasn't right. Sacrifice for the future for today when the timing wasn't right. And I want to avoid that. And I'm willing to kind of wait it down the line on that one to make sure you avoid it, especially when the ultimate downside when it all gets said and done is not that you lose that cap space money. It's that you can roll that cap space money into next season. Now we can get the contract extensions done for all of the young players that we want to get it done for. Does Walker go out there and have a 1,500 yard year and you're like, okay, in this new offense, he's a great fit. He's a fantastic. We're going to give him a little bit of a contract extension. We're not giving him Saquon money. We'll give him a little bit of something now because we can afford. We got it on the books. Or Reek Woolen finally has a light bulb come on. And boy, the price just got up to $25 million a year for a J.C. Horn, resetting the market for the cornerbacks. But you go, man, it finally came on for him. It finally came on. Tackling was there. Fit to the defense. Let's go. If these things come to culmination, you have all that much ability to make those moves without having to feel like you're cutting off your tail to save your ears. And keep it all. Keep it all, I would say. But I'd love to hear where you guys are at with this right now as far as the fan base goes. Where do you stand? Do you want to see this team now be aggressive with it? Or are you in the camp of where I'm at with it? Do you think that there's still go make a couple moves before the draft? Even better, set this draft up to be able to operate off of that value-based model of approach. Where you guys, I really would like to know where you guys kind of are at on this one, because I think that there's a lot of different opinion out there in the Seahawks fandom about this at this point. And I think a lot of folks right now are still kind of struggling and dealing with a little bit of the aftermath of understanding that it is not a season where after 10 wins, you are pushing down to try to really get this thing aggressively to a contending status. The team's trying to get to a contending status. They're not trying to suck. They're not trying to tank. They're not trying to be bad. By no measure are they doing that. But odds and all of that and understanding the decisions they had facing them this offseason, I think that they took the road of the intelligent approach and that it's going to really bear out everything right for us in the end. But We can just stay in that pocket. And I think there's going to be a heavy pull for John right now to be pulled out of that pocket a little bit versus going, look, no, we're step back, stay here. We're going to kill this draft. We're just going to mop the floor with these teams across the board. 5 picks in the top 100. Get around into rookie OTAs and just let's see where everything's at. Mike McDonald's defense year 2. Kubiak and his coaches and their effect on this offense and how quickly that can take root. Let's let it lie. Let's see where it sits. But you guys let me know where you stand with it. Love to hear from you guys today. I thank you guys for watching. If you can for me, please do hit that like button if you could for me today. And please subscribe. Just wanted to let you guys know on a programming note, we're going to be doing a bunch of B&B shows here over the next couple of weeks. Individual shows like we did this last Friday, just based around looking at the individual prospects in this draft. We're going to kind of stay concentrated in sort of the top 4 rounds of the draft. That's the hope here, and kind of really locking in on the really bright prospects coming up on this one. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be on, I think, Tuesday and Thursday this week, and then we're going with 3 shows the week after that. So we're going to be lining up a lot on that side of it. Also be on the roundtable this week as well on Tuesday. But thanks for watching today. I hope you guys are doing well. And let's see where we're at. Dogzilla in the house. What's up, Dogzilla? I told Rob I could no longer super chat. He immediately unblocked me. We'll get Rob on. I saw some notes prior to the stream about some requests for that with Nick on that, and I've been meaning to do it for a very long period of time, and I've been super bad about that. But this, I want to get Rob on. This is absolutely the perfect time of year to do it as well. Yeah, we'll get to working on that, Nick. Sorry you got put in timeout on the blogger stream. Jeff, $4 says, let's go. We got this. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, Jeff. And Ben says, can't watch Rob. Chieferton, working. Love the show, bro. Appreciate you, Chieferton. War Chief, aloha, man. How you doing, War Chief? War Chief, we got to talk, bro. Guys, we got to get a direct line from War Chief here, okay? Okay, so War Chief is our guy out there in Hawaii, right? And he's got the connection to the Tet family now, War Chief. I need to hear from you, man. We're getting these work ethic stuff. We're having 2 different things happening at once with Tet McMillan right now, War Chief. One, the true possibility of Ted McMillan dropping down to the Seattle Seahawks and being available to him is more a possibility today than it's been at any point through this pre-draft process. But it's that way, it would seem, because we're getting these rumors coming out about, love of the sport, work ethic. Love to hear. I know you've got a little bit of connections there. I think you mentioned in the past. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on it. There's a video that came out with him talking about not liking to watch film, but it was supposedly from his freshman year. And odd timing that video to drop. Some of you wonder too about some of these NFL teams trying to get things working in the background. Seahawks, I think John Schneider wants to save cap money for the draft picks and for the season if we make any trades. That's what I'm thinking too. We're in alignment on that one, Seahawks. It's kind of how I'm feeling with this one. And I think it makes a lot of sense to do it this way because you get more time to assess your team, your young team and where they're at, your young coach and where he's at and in progressing this team along. But then the market opportunities that have presented themselves in recent years at that time of year. And you could say it may not be bargain basement shopping, but you're not paying high prices most of the time. Most of the time. Jeff Warnall, rumor has it maybe moving up to get a blue chip offensive lineman in the draft. What is everyone thinking? I could see them doing it. Mabo and Campbell make a lot of sense to be the kind of player they move up to do just that. In Campbell's case, I think he's going to be a guard at the next level. The arm length thing is a factor. Some of the arm length thing too, going back and watching the tape and doing a little bit of research on him recently here last couple of days. The arm length thing too is something that has held him back at the tackle position. It's not allowed him to be as good because he doesn't have that length to really draw upon. So it's also something that just directly is in relation to the what has NFL teams concerned and why they want to kick him inside. And that does mean then he drops a little bit within the draft, but he still then goes in the top 15 at that point, Jeff. So now we get to the rub on this one being that, okay, he moves out of 5-6. He's in 11, 12. Do you flick a 3rd round pick to get up into 12 to be able to get Campbell at that point? And now you've got the guy that could be, turn out to be the best left guard in the entire draft when it's all said and done. Could see John doing that. And Armand Mabo, similar kind of situation, similar reasons. I don't think he'd do it for Josh Simmons. Not sure there'd be any other lineman that would be really worthy of doing it on that side of it, but I could see them certainly making that kind of move. Brees says, if we go out and get a running back, I'm going to be unhappy. I don't think we will on that one. I think they might draft one somewhere in this draft for Brees, but I don't think it'll be early. And it'll be really, they're just drafting at that point because of the fact that it's such a good draft as far as running backs go. Which is all those analysts are in the club, kind of analysts, and some of them are good. I enjoy a lot of them without any names, but it's only like they and their club know what's going on with the Seahawks. Yeah, there can sometimes be a little bit of that with it. Brady, don't draft the best available. Buy what we need, wide receivers and O-line. Draft the best, buy what we need, wide receiver and O-line. Well, they had that chance to buy those O-linemen this offseason, Brady. I think they're pretty hard-lined into going down that road of drafting the linemen early here in this draft. There's not a lot of good ones left, but you might be right with it. I mean, they made Brandon Scherf and then go make a trade of a Wyatt Teller. Both of these things could happen as two conjunctive moves, and bam, you're setting yourself up for not having to necessarily go hard as we're thinking right now for the interior offensive line. Or Chief, hey, if you're covering the Seahawks, they get props from me. I'm sorry, you guys are having some internal discussion there. Hawks Gold, this isn't a good draft for corners. It's not the best. There's some pretty good depth in their Hawks Gold, but I think impact-wise, you're probably right on the button there. Even on the top side, guys, too, to your point of that, you have Will Johnson, who last year of tape was not his best year of tape, and you don't like that, taking a guy in the first round of that spot. And you have Njada Barron, a guy that really fun player, dynamic as hell. He's got 29-inch arms. And you go, oh. And it even goes beyond that. You still then go to Benjamin Morrison, maybe perhaps the third, fourth best cornerback in this draft. Fantastic tape back in 23. Multiple hip surgeries and wrist surgery, I believe, or a wrist problem in addition to it. And yeah, it's not the greatest cornerback class on that side of it, I would say. For allows, how do you rank off seasons? I don't know how you rank off seasons. It's kind of hard. Especially because ranking off seasons is also a bit about the factor at the head of this of assessing where your team is properly. Because Rome wasn't built in a day, and if your team needs more than a couple days worth of work, you're not going to try to be necessarily microwaving everything. Siaka went Donovan Jackson. He's mean potatoes, a good safe pick, man. Jackson, Zabel. I don't think we're going wrong with those ones. Hawks Gold, most of our needs are in depth. The starting defense is 10 out of 11 set, and the starting offense is 9 out of 12 set. Yep. True. /depth/ you can go and get a guy that may be the future of the position, and maybe you can be more willing to target a guy that might take a year to get there at that point for the upside. Does a Siobhan Ravel coming off of his surgery and the upside he promises at the cornerback position, another corner that's broken coming into this draft a bit, does that be that type of player that you would take? Then Hawks Gold to kind of go a year out on him. And like, hey, a year out from now, he's going to maybe prove to be one of the best corners in this draft. And we just have to take the investment in him on that. Chuck says BPA at 18, interior offensive line at 50-52. That's the way I see it too, Chuck H. I think the player's too good at 18 not to go BPA, and then just come back and deal with the line at that spot of 50-52. And whoever you take at 50-52 of those collection of prospects of guard interior linemen that'll be there are going to be just fine. Just fine. Even if you're taking an itty-bitty, teeny-tiny little bit of a reach on a couple of guys in there. T-Man says the problem with Zabel is pass pro. I would much rather take the risk of trading back and hoping he falls than sticking and picking him. Yeah, 18's too early for Zabel. T-Man, you're absolutely right about that. And I'm a little bit worried about that same thing developing in this draft. War Chief, I'm going to say is that Zabel for North Dakota, which I totally agree. O-line, everybody that's come from North Dakota is an offensive star. They are pretty good. They've gotten some good ones coming out recently. Saban Sent Studio says never get your powder wet. Rookie move. That's right. That's right, Sabans. That's a day one mistake right there. Kenneth Grant all day, Stone Cold. Kenneth Grant all day long. Sports Talk with Jose Rodriguez. What does that mean, keep your powder dry? It's a reference back to the days of, it's back to the days of when they had cannonballs. Basically, it's like a reference back to that, Jose. So it's one of those old school references where you need like a corn cob pipe and a wig to get the reference, a powdered wig to get the reference. No pun intended. But it's essentially you can't fire your cannon if the gunpowder gets wet. So it's one of those things about make sure you're ready that when you want to fire, your powder's good to go, as opposed to you've expended it all, and so it's kind of a reference back to that a little bit, but it's old school too, Jose. So it's one that probably 3/4 of the chat's going powder dry, like the powder women put on their cheeks, like that powder. What do you mean? I get it on that part. But it's got that guy cannon reference thing to it that's just appealing. The more war references us men can have when we make metaphorical references, the better. God's Gang, thank you for the $2 donation. Good day, bro. What did you think of Nico? I still can't say his name. I'm working on it. I am Liavea. I'm going to get that one right. It's going to take me give me a couple tries with that one. I did have a chance to watch Nico. And very, very, very impressed by him for being such a young kid. Really strong, got a little bit of a string bean, a lot of room for him to grow into his old man body a little bit on there where he can easily, to me, add another good 15 pounds and no problem. I went last year with a comp of Jaden Daniels with a Randall Cunningham back in the day. And I said, it's Randall Cunningham, but he's got like 2 inches less height than Randall had. Not quite as tall, 2.5 inches less. Got to say, man, Nico might be more of the pure comp for Randall Cunningham than even that goes. He's almost Randall Cunningham without the windup, is the way I would put it. And it really stands out when he's moving to his right and moving fast to his right, and then still able to throw with velocity and put it to the right spot in that way. It looks very Randall-esque to me going back on the tape there, God's Gang. And he's got a good plus arm. I don't know if I'd go full cannon style or it's a big arm. It's very close to a big arm. If we want to put the label of that out there, I think by the way it looks on tape, it's got some zip. He does a really good job on the deep balls of getting it out in front of guys, where a lot of these guys in their deep balls in college will oftentimes have it kind of float and drift up there a bit. They're really struggling to get it pushed all the way down the field, whereas he just can let it loose and let it rip. His mobility is top end. He's got the deer, long-legged running style there, where just he's off and going, and he's able to make his legs work in addition to that without having to be really used like a running back for the position. Just naturally do it within the context of how he plays. Very, very impressive as well for being a redshirt freshman there, to watch him going through reads and moving safeties with his eyes. He knows he wants to go to the 9 route on the backside, takes the snap, he's pulling the safety to the left all the way here, come back over here, throws the moon ball over the top, and then you're seeing the safety as the ball's dropping in, you're watching the safety doing their desperate attempt to try to get back up into the play to try to help out the cornerback who's been toasted. And it's wide open. He makes the completion. So that's some advanced stuff that you don't see juniors and seniors doing. And to be doing it as a redshirt freshman as well, very, very impressive. Good little over the top delivery. I like that as well about him. You look at him in first and you go, okay, well, is this going to be like a Mariota kind of guy? But no, is he much more of a free and easier thrower of the football, much more of a compact delivery, not as much side arming it. I think his accuracy is going to be better because of that. It's going to be a fun player to track, though, God's Gang. I was very, very impressed by the first view of him. That's a heady freshman playing how he was playing. Decision making was pretty on point. T-Man says, I personally think Donovan Jackson's a better prospect than Zabel. I have him with a first-round grade. I think that I'd probably be apt to agree with you on that, T-Man. I think the nice part about it, too, is that with Donovan Jackson, even if you have a little bit of a thinking that Zabel's better than him, you're doing a lot of projection to do that. In Zabel, you have a guy that played a wholly different position than the one he's going to play at the pro level. And you're going, I hope he can do that. And from a small school, I hope he can do that. Leaning on the Senior Bowl stuff, that's always a trepidatious place to put your hopes and dreams and prayers upon, that the Senior Bowl is the overriding factor. You come back to Donovan Jackson, and he's much more of, I don't have to do any imagination. I know what he is. I know where he's going. I know the player he'll be. It's really a question with him of ceiling more than it is about the floor you're getting. But it is a little bit of the two that I guess you're going at with those two T-men, where you want to go for the proposed ceiling of Zabel that may or may not be there, or do you want to go for the certainty of the floor of Jackson? And back to your point on this, you could maybe make the argument that more of the certainty back to Jackson is more of what is needed for this offensive line right now. Love me some Jackson, though, too. Jonathan Jackson could be a good choice also. I think, Donovan Jackson, you're saying Donovan. Thomas says, I get not signing a free agent for the line, but right now it's still March, not December. Yes, it could be the same old Seahawks, but I believe John's tired of the complaints fans and media has been doing. I'd estimate it is too. I mean, when he's to the point of giving you a story of having somebody come up to him and ask him if he's doing okay. And then they're like, you can get this line fixed? What's going on here? It's definitely probably reached a point. I've said this, it's had to have been loud as it's ever been for him. And if it was annoying before, it's got to be absolutely like, I can't shut this off, And I think he is going to deal with it one way or the other there. Pops P, I would say Kelvin Banks is a pretty good and is the pick. Great pick, Pops. Nothing wrong with Kelvin Banks. And both him and Will Campbell in the first round are two guys that make a lot of sense in the first round as guards. Donovan Jackson does as well, though I do think Donovan's more of like a 25-ish place where I'd like to be taking him. It's good. T-Man says, what are your all thoughts on Jake Majors? His arm length scares me. I do like Jake Majors quite a bit, actually. Arm length is a little bit of a concern, but when you got him at center, I think the centers can get away with a little bit of the lack of arm length. I don't think a guard and center, it gets lesser the further you get away from center. So it's like guards can get a little bit less away with it, and then the tackles can't get away with any of that less arm length stuff. But I thought he was like a kind of an improved Oluwatimi T-man. Pass blocking center, good anchor, smart operator, good strikes with the chest, hits his target well. Not a badass in the run game, but overall a positive. Quick out of his stance. Not a lot of like flashiness to him. He'll be one of those grinders in there, just gets the job done. But he usually always gets the job done. Fourth round kind of cat, my estimation. Raylan legendary Tyler Warren reminds me of Brock Bowers. Ooh. He's definitely got the hands and the contested catch stuff's definitely very similar with Brock. I think Brock had maybe a little bit more, wiggle, but they also have a lot of good yards after the catch that they can give you from the position too. Probably going to go Rain, to your point on that, very similar in the draft, where they'll be selected, in the bottom line. Space, you shouldn't be super impressed by any of these quarterbacks. They're kind of unimpressive. Nick's is early second, like we trade now the first. I'd like to do like Nick, like an 18 to 26, 27, 28, 29 drop. Something like that. And then if you can get an extra early third round pick back, that's probably the best you could hope to get back on a pullback like that. That'd be fantastic. That's my ideal. Because I think that the player that you get around 27, 28 is going to be very similar to the player you get at 18. And then you're also getting the third round pick in addition. It's like, well, it's going to be the same player. Give me an extra third. It's a little bit like what we did with the Darnold to Geno thing, where it's like, well, Geno is a little bit better than Darnold, but would you rather have Geno at 45 or Darnold at a significant less amount of money plus a third-round pick at a younger age? It's one of those kind of, it's like all the factors at hand and trying to determine what's the right moves there. But I love trading back. Moving back's the way. Thomas's Warren's 1A, but Grant, Starks, Jihad Campbell, or Will Campbell are 2A, but 90% of all those players could be gone by 18. It's hard to predict on this, Thomas. I don't know that there's anybody yet really who's got a really good full read exactly on the players that are for sure going to go up ahead of us in this draft in that way. There's a general idea, but when we're going especially to play positions like tight end, safety, inside linebacker, these have not been positions that have been ones that we've seen a lot of selections made in the top 12 of NFL drafts. And those guys are worthy of it. They are, of being picked there. But recent history has also been one that they don't tend to go there. Nick says apparently Campbell's going to miss rookie year because he needs some surgery. Yeah, I'm dropping a video on my Clips channel tomorrow morning in regards to this very subject about Campbell. And there's a lot of love for Jihad Campbell in the fan base, which I completely get because he's an awesome player. And it makes a lot of sense as to why they'd like him. But the Seahawks have made their bed with the inside linebacker position. And it doesn't make any sense to draft a guy who you're going to take, who you're then going to have to move out of position through the early part of his career, / not really give him a method to go and become a starter unless he's divinely able. People talk about him as an edge guy when he's not been terribly effective when he was used as an edge at creating much pressure. And then you add on top of this that, he's got a surgery and that might have missed some of his rookie year because of that, or at least maybe not be at his best because he's going to be rehabbing all offseason. I just don't think that with Campbell it makes much sense at this point coming back to him on it. It's you making the Jordan Brooks mistake all over again. Nicholas says Kenneth Grant would be a great pick at 18, even though we need O-line. We also need a true nose tackle. We do. And he's worthy of it there. Slubby one, Hawks Nest. What's up, man? Kevin O'Connell, how you doing, brother? Says hit that like button. Thank you for reminding me of that. Please do if you guys could. Hit that like button. It helps out a lot. Alpha Sekamox wouldn't be mad with Mbao to play center, Connerly, Ursay to play left guard, especially because I think both Connerly and Ursay can play right tackle if Abe goes down, or in 26 if we don't bring him back. I like it, man. I like it, Alpha. All good players. All guys I've got very highly rated. Thrillhouse, I never understood the edge rusher Jihad take. We got Ernest. Grant seems like the player that will be there because the teams ahead of us don't need a nose tackle like us. He does, yeah. And I haven't either really as well. I was open to thinking that, okay, I get the edge angle of this a little bit, but he's not a good enough edge. And I think what's really happening with Jihad when people think about the edge stuff is they're being, I think, a little bit swayed by recent given history of guys like Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter in this draft, Jalen Walker in this class. It just lends itself to you wanting to sort of throw him on top of the rest of the heap and going, and he can do it too. And he's not in that same vein of player of them as when he comes off the edge. He's not that kind of dude. And that's okay. You don't have to be that kind of guy. It's like that. These guys are unicorn type players that can be off-ball linebackers, but can also be pass rushing edges. In Seahawks history, for instance, in the Seahawks full history of things, if I go back and I'm thinking about it, I believe that we've only had 2 off-ball linebackers in our entire, at least let's say for the last 40 years of me watching. You've had 2 off-ball linebackers that you were able to go a line out as an edge and then them be effective as edge. That was Chad Brown and that was Julian Peterson. Those are the only 2 guys you've been able to pull this off. It's a really rare skill set to find that you get guys that can do this type of thing. And the NFL, quite frankly, at times has struggled in recent years in targeting certain edges that they look at as off-ball linebackers who should also be able to play edge, and come to find that they're not really able to be that. That's not really their game, so to speak, with it on a lot of them, because it's a whole separate talent skill set. It's a whole separate thing. Having quickness and bend and dip and knowing how to use your hands against a pass rusher and being aware of the quarterback and it's the timing of it all. It's a completely different thing than playing off-ball linebacker. Thomas says today at a mock where I had Wilson, Ratledge, and Zabel. It was a big BPA need thing. It's still a risk because Seattle could miss out on some good players. They could, but I'll tell you this with your mock draft, Thomas. their offensive line will be a whole hell of a lot better. Mark says tush push band's gaining some momentum. I hope it does. I hope it does. I don't think that it's a fun play in the NFL. I don't think it's good for the sport. I think it's good for the Eagles. I don't think it's good for the sport. And, look, we had to be on the end of this at one point in time. The Legion of Boom and the cornerbacks on the outside were taking the lunch money of wide receivers for a couple of years. And what did the NFL do? They pulled the e-brake on us and decided that they were going to make more of a point of emphasis on the defensive holding and being physical off the line of scrimmage and bop. So look, we've been on that other side of it where we had a system and a way of our players playing that was really maximally benefiting us over maybe the rest of the NFL and how they were playing the corner position. And the NFL was like, look, we're going to stamp this down. So it's like, we've been on the other end of this. And so let's maintain consistency. It's, to me, it's a silly play. It's stupid. And it doesn't make the game funner to watch. The second you see them get up for the tush push, you stand up to go get a beer from the fridge. That's the reaction to that play. And that's not a good reaction. That's not sure what the NFL should be aspiring for. It's the whole point of them reinventing the whole special teams, right? The whole point of them reinventing the whole kickoff rule, because you don't want automatic plays. That's what you're trying to remove. You're trying to make sure everything has a sense of counting and mattering and something is at stake. Thomas's Jihad can play edge. Rob Stanton kind of equated him like Micah Parsons. If Seattle drafts him, I believe AD will believe he's close to Micah. Well, I mean, I guess if AD believes it. It's a heavy push out there, Thomas. It's a heavy push, and there's plenty of people out there in the Hawk content world that I've heard from on this as well that do believe it. The thing with this, Thomas, is that it's all pie in the sky kind of stuff at this point. There's nothing really to base it upon. I mean, I can actually build up my case and show things that are exactly evidentiary of what I'm talking about. We can look at the low usage of snaps of Jihad off the edge by Alabama, even this past year. And it's not like Alabama had a bunch of just, soul wreckers coming off the edge. Turner was gone. The kid out there in Texas is long gone. I keep pointing to this chart here on the side, and I don't know, I guess I'm not getting much headway with it, but here's your pass rush win rates for edges coming out in this draft. Josiah Stewart, 38%. Brady Swinston, 30%. Abdul Carter, 28%. James Pierce, 27%. Jack Sawyer, 26%. And then we come all the way down here, and we get to Jihad Campbell at 14%. So it's like, that's not evidence. These are true pass sets, by the way. These are true pass sets that aren't just bubble screens like this. This is an evidence of the fact that he's not a particularly good edge rusher. And I know Michael Williams is down there, a guy that I do like a lot on this too, down on that end of it. But with Michael, he's also injured all year. And he's in the Georgia defense that doesn't just let him go and get crazy with it off the ball in that way. So I'm open to being wrong with this one. I just have to be shown a little bit more than somebody saying like, I look at him and I just think he can do it. It's like, okay, well, why? Because his background doesn't illustrate that he's going to do it. And this is something you have to be kind of sure about, don't you? Because if he can't do the edge stuff, then you're just stacking him behind linebackers where he's not playing, and you basically have blown a pick on a first-round pick. And that's not a smart thing to go. And I'm very surprised. I've got to really be saying I'm really honestly surprised on this Jihad thing that it gets pushed so very hard out there that the Hawks just did this with Jordan Brooks. You had Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. You draft Jordan Brooks. You have no pathway for him to play. He sits on the bench. Then when he does come off the bench, he's playing the will linebacker position, which isn't his natural position, which again is in addition to things this team has done over and over for years, which is play guys out of position at the wrong position. Why do we have such an obsession with playing guys out of their natural position here? I do not know. And it's at the heart of this with Jihad. It's like, he can do edge stuff. He's an inside linebacker. Yeah, but he can do edge, but he's a linebacker. We continually take guys and we slam them here when they should be this. We take Byron Murphy and nose tackle, and he's a 3-tech. And I don't know, we're like one of the only teams in the NFL that does it to this extreme degree. And if it was successful and we're moving these guys to these different positions and they're lighting the world on fire, I'd be fully with this. But we're not having success in taking this approach with these players. Having Ethan Posick play guard through the first couple of years of his career was not for the benefit of Ethan Posick. He was a pure center, but that's what you did. And I can go through so many countless names on this. And it's just, I feel like there's a little bit of like forgetting the past on this one. And again on this one, I got to ask for these folks, because at this point, I'm like almost pulling my hair out on it. What is it that we're looking at with Jihad Campbell that gives us such confidence and faith that this guy can be that edge guy? If I show you these pass rush win rates for Micah Parsons when he was coming off the edge and the few times he was coming off the edge at Penn State, he's not going to be down here at the low end spot where Campbell is. He's going to be up here when I show you that pass rush win rate up around these guys. There's a baseline, there's a marker for success there that's not based upon pure Willy Wonka imagination. And I think it's in a little bit of that spot right now, and I hear it so much mentioned, but I don't ever hear anybody really back it up, other than, everybody's just got kind of an individual kind of feeling on it, But boy, it's one that I tell you, he might be the most favored by some out there in this way. And in some of it's just driven so heartily, it seems like, by this ultimate faith that he can play that position, that he can play off the edge. I wish I saw it, and to such a degree, but in watching the tape, man, I just don't see it myself. He's definitely fast. He's definitely quick, but that doesn't make a pass rusher. Not to mention you're 4 deep on your edges as it is. How many snaps is this guy exactly going to get as an edge rusher as it is? Do we think he's better than Demarcus Lawrence? Do we think he's better than Derek Hall? Do we think he's better than Boye Mafe? Do we think he's better than Uchenna Nwosu? So we get back to, again, we're going to blow a first-round pick for a guy that's going to get barely any snaps and only gets on the field unless we have injuries. I don't know if that's a good use of a first-round pick. But boy, I don't know, man. This one for me with the Thomas is just one that I'm really struggling with, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'm trying to find I would love him to be able to play edge, because he's my favorite inside linebacker in this draft, by far. By far. I got a first-round grade on him for the Mike linebacker position, and I don't usually give those out. So he's the real deal when it comes to the inside linebacker. He is a monster in there. But you're not getting the same thing off the edge, and Micah Parsons was a wholly different animal coming off the edge. And then we also have the surgery this offseason too, by the way, which is just kind of another impediment to the situation when there's all these other players that we could be looking at that are just much better picks, much better selections that can bring about much quicker returns to us. You've got to feel like you've got a superstar in Jihad Campbell if you're taking him. You've got to be sure of it. And I don't know that anybody can look at the tape on that and walk away saying that they're sure of him being a superstar guy to overlook some of this other stuff. But maybe I'm just missing the boat on this one too, Thomas. It could be. I don't get it. And again, I'm dropping a video tomorrow on the channel, Monday on Clip's channel, addressing this very point. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. Quarterback flying under the radar, Dill Funk. Gotta look out for that Dill Funk. Gotta look out for that Dill Funk. That funky funk. Thank you, HHG. Silver Ace, Brandon, will you play left guard? Is that why they won't give you a press pass? Because they want you to play instead? Could be, man. They're just waiting through the process to let me know. And look, I will do that for you guys, okay? I will put on 75 pounds. Hypermobile, squatty build, low to the ground, okay? But I'm going to stick my nose in there, okay? I got one good season in me. One good season. After which I'm going to need to be put out on a medical bed for about 2 straight years. Just put me into like a coma state while the body just repairs. But I'll do what it takes, man. I'll be the dirtiest left guard in the sport to get it done. Whatever it takes. Thomas says, I don't care if the tush push was still legal. My belief is if you want to stop it, then stop letting the Eagles get to short yardage. It shows weak mentality. Learn to stop it. Fair enough point. Thrill House, Brandon, keep your powder dry is good, but your abandon the torpedoes and get out of the oars was good. That's a good one too. Save the Keys. Someone asked on Rob Stan's stream if he'd be down to join your show, and he said yes. You should go stream before the draft. I'll see if I can set up. Tell you, folks, because I know that this is a highly requested one on it. Let me reach out and see if Rob will be maybe down this next Sunday. Well, I'll try to see if I can set up a show around that. Do some draft talk for Sunday's show next week. See where he's at. I appreciate the recommendation. Definitely something I've been meaning to get around to, and that's been my bad dropping the ball on that one a little bit. As I can definitely stand to get some more folks in here onto the channel and get a little bit more few guests flying through here a bit. I think it would be for the better, especially Rob. He knows his stuff. Brian says Loveland injury may cause drop until Chargers. Harbaugh wants him. I could definitely see that. It's kind of a fit there too right now with the way they stand. Thomas says Loveland someone I like more and more. I think he could be a steal, but if Warren is there, I'm taking him. Good, both good players to me, Thomas. Both really good players. And with Loveland, hasn't been a focal point of that offense to be able to be put on his best display, like a guy like Warren was, like a Harold Fannin was with his 100 catches. You have last year with JJ and the run-centric nature of that offense. Barner also there to take some touches away. And then this year, the quarterback play wasn't the best with that Michigan team. Definitely was pulling back a little bit of that productivity. Alpha says it's Ia Ma Liava. All right. Iama Liava. I'm going to try to remember that. Iama Liava. Okay. I think I got that one. Thomas Loveland is a Jimmy Graham type, but maybe still a great player. Is not. I think you mean not Jimmy Graham type. Shoot, Kelsey isn't a player who Casey wants to block. Casey wants him out pass catching. It's less of an issue. I mean, it's a thing. It's a part of the evaluation with Loveland Thomas. It is, but it's also, to your point on this. This is the importance on the differences of types of players and positions, and not all tight ends are the same. And that I often reference this in the way when I look at these guys in the draft and scouting them, where you make the differentiation between H-back and inline tight end. Inline guys are the guys that I need to be soul-crushing blockers. H-back guys, I'd like it if they can block, but it's not necessarily a wholly absolute prerequisite to get the most out of the H-back position, because really most of the H-back position serves it oftentimes to be more of the pass-catching type of role. Or if they're going to block, they're going to be pin and pull kind of blocks, or get to the second level linebacker blocks, versus inline guys that actually have to take on the edges and force those, clear out a hole off that edge, which is a tough task for those tight ends. That's as hard as it gets. You're going 260 at best in your weight up against a guy that's probably, it depends on these defensive ends, I suppose, but you have a 275, 280 pound guy potentially over there on that edge really that you try to push off the spot. So it's not as big a problem for him for the type of player he is. I think it does come down to how good is the blocking meter with him, Thomas? How far does it go up with him? Is it a complete deficiency, or can he get the job done? But as a pass catcher, there's no doubt that he's athletic. He's athletic, great body control in the air, ability to extend out and really be able to pluck that ball up from a high location, a little bit like Jimmy Graham. Good player. Rain legendary. People saying Tator, McMillan, not that fast. People like Matthew Golden. Yeah, I don't know what the McMillan not fast. You just got tested. He went 4.48. I mean, he's not McMillan at 3, but that's okay. At his size, at his length, he doesn't need to run 4.3. And you don't need a receiver to run. You don't need all receivers to run 4.3 to be effective in the NFL. There's different types on this one, but I thought that the Pro Day Rain legendary really solidified him as a guy who had plenty of speed. Daniel says, Rob Stan says, there's a rumor we may take Emeka Ibuka. I'd be stoked for our offense if our first 3 picks were Emeka, best guard available, best tight end available. That'd be an interesting direction to go. It would be. I'm not as big an Emeka guy because I just don't know about we're going to stack up just a bunch of slots on the team, but hey, maybe it works. What's up, Bravos? Zach in the house. Burton's a better wide receiver than Ibuka. Fits the system more. And if the wide receiver doesn't start till 18, Ted is the guy that I'll go with the Seahawks at 18. Ted's my guy too. Give me the X. Give me the X. Eric's going to give it to him. He's going to give it to him. Brian, I'm with you, Brian. I'm with you on that. Rather have that too. Thomas need is important, but like Schneider, technique in the rounds 1 through 3. I'm still a believer Seattle will copy a Baltimore baller where they draft BPA, O-line, D-line, first 3 picks. I can see it. Jim Campbell says Emeka is a slot guy. We have enough slot guys. Need speed to respect. Agreed, Jim. 100%. This offseason, the weird thing's starting to happen where it's become more just out of the blue, like we're going to go multiple slots talk in a little bit. And that's kind of a new thing because it's in the past, it's like, been always understood, of you got your guys in their different positions, The Lions don't have 2 Amon St. Browns out on the field at one time. That doesn't tend to be the way you really roll it. And even the Cooper Kupp case where people kind of make this reference to Kupp, Kupp's always basically been a 50-50 guy. He's played naturally on the outside. He's had success on the outside, Nose tackle, Dak Daniels. Peter Van Gent, any thoughts on Harold Fenneman? He's got an interesting build and athletic skill set. Think he can be a complete tight end in the NFL? Harold Fenneman is a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And just in general terms, I'd say Harold Fenneman is probably one of my favorite tight ends in the draft, just regardless of where you're going to be drafting them at. And when it comes to tight ends, I've gotten really keenly kind of an idea that's jumped to the forefront of my mind recently when it comes to these tight ends, that some of these tight ends that become like some of the really great ones and really turn into being really like not just difference makers, but almost kind of all-timer type guys at the tight end position, that they all have something kind of just weirdly unique to them and something that's just a little bit of a kind of curveball attribute they have to what they bring. And Antonio Gates had just a way he moved on the field that wasn't like other normal tight ends. The athleticism to the size of Tony Gonzalez with his basketball background and what that allowed him to do in changing direction for his size and the hands that I think it helped him to develop and being that kind of guy and playing power forward and being able to box guys out. He brought that kind of weird about Gronk with as stiff as he was. There's just something about even in his stiffness, he could just make it happen. And he was so big and just unusual in that way. And then I look at Fannin and he's built in a very much a weird kind of fashion. He's got kind of a inverse bow-legged thing. It's almost like Kenny Smith of basketball, where you practically expect his knees to be rubbing together a little bit when he walks. And he builds on this strong 2023 to 2024, goes over 100 catches. And then in addition to having the knees kind of be like this when he runs, it also looks like he's kind of cross-country skiing when he's running. It's the weirdest thing. But it also, in another way, then helps him for what's some of the best stuff that he does, which great pass catcher, can make all of the great catches, but then he's an exceptional yak guy. He's a guy that can make the grab and he can break a tackle in a variety of different ways. He can juke around you. He can give you just the stiff arm. He's able to just create space by just taking the right cut in the open field and getting laterally at the kind of right moment. And he's also a finisher where he's going to lower his head. He's going to be violent at the end of his runs. He's not going to go down easily. So he's fun all the way around in that way. And I feel like his running gait is part of what sort of ends up helping him in creating some of that, yak ability in what he does. He's a little bit to me like a David Njoku light. Not quite to maybe where David Njoku was, but there's a lot of similarities, I think, between the two of those guys. He's also a tremendous blocker, a real close to grade A blocker for the position. Very, very young as well. Kid's just a baby coming out right now here into the sport. And a guy that's one of the maybe fewer tight ends in this draft that I think does really purely fit is also being that fullback type that we're going to need to this offense, where he's not a 6'5", 6'6" guy, where he's got at least enough size there around the 6'3" size-ish to where that's close enough to historical fullback size norms. And the reason you don't want them long is because they're going to go in there and clear out somebody out of the hole. They've got to win the leverage battle. They got to get under the pads of the inside linebacker. You can't do that at 6'5", 6'6". That's why you don't see a lot of tight ends back in the backfield in that fullback role. But with him being just a little bit not as tall as some of those other guys traditionally there, he's going to maybe be able to fill that in as well. So he gives you maybe a 2-for-1 in picking him, but he's a lot of fun to watch as a player. Plays really hard. He's got a big catch radius, really solid hands. There's not a lot there really to pick at him other than he's just kind of an awkward times looking prospect on tape. But I think he'll be fun. I would definitely like to see him drift down a little bit to where we pick him, because I think he might be picked as high as even in the second round at this point, where I'd really prefer to try to get him more into the third round range of things, and that'd be about the right value for him. But a player who would be a lot of fun on this football team, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. A lot of fun on this football team. Orchie says, yo, man, did you see how much money Micah Parsons trying to get out of him? Anybody? Laughing out loud, $200 million. Let's just say that together, $200 million. He's trying to reset the market, and part of me wonders if a little bit on this too. There's a game going on between Parsons and the Cowboys right now, and he's trying to, I think in a lot of ways, get this deal done quicker than later, and he knows the Cowboys want to get this done later than quicker. So two forces opposing each other a little bit here. Does that open the door for him to eventually be moved? Yeah. I don't think there's anybody giving him $200 million. He doesn't play the run well enough to be paid this, I'm going to break the whole market kind of contract, especially if you're going to have to trade multiple first-round picks to go get him. People don't believe in facts anymore. Thomas, other players I like are Barron from Texas. He's a lot of fun. Starks, South Carolina safety, Genty, all good players, man. There's a lot of good players I like in this draft. It's a fun draft. James Pierce could be a good pick there, Rain. Thomas, honestly, I'm more a Sawyer or JT type players. I love the Georgia type players and Walker, Williams, and Starks. Shoot, I said Chad Starks 3 times. You really like Starks. But you should. He's fun. Jalen Walker's very interesting, Rain Legendary. Really interesting. One of the better linebackers in recent years, and coming out of the draft in that off-ball linebacker role, in the spy kind of role. This is becoming more of a standard kind of position in the NFL with these mobile quarterbacks. And do you have that guy that can, be somewhat effective into coverage, and then when he's got a breakout of coverage, have the ignition switch, the electricity to be able to then get on top of that really mobile quarterback before the quarterback can break the pocket, go and bust off the first down yardage on a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. And he's did a lot of that, in addition to giving you some really good looks coming off the edge there at the times that Georgia would do it with him. Real fun player, twitched up to the nines, definitely going to go in the first round, certainly is a potential guy that might be a possibility for the Hawks where they're picking at 18. Real House Hawks Nest, how do you feel about our schedule? Seems like the easiest one in a long time. I'm calling it. Our playoff hopes will come down to a last game beating Jaden and the Commanders. Ooh, bold statement, Thrill House. Love the schedule. Love the schedule. You want things set up as easy as possible on this. I'm not like, no, give me the hardest schedule. I want us to earn this. I don't need to earn it. I'm okay. History doesn't really factor into the earning it side of things, So give me the easiest that you can give us, and great. And it is a pretty tasty schedule, Thrill House. It's one where there is a pathway to the playoffs on this team. Absolutely there is. And it is not one that's going to be necessarily like, well, if you squint and turn your head a little bit, maybe you can see it as a playoff team. No, the pathway is there. And it's really there as much as anything because, Mike had the successful first year and have the defense coming back, good young talent. But that schedule is a big part of this and looking at that. And if we had a schedule like 2 years ago with that 7-game gauntlet that we had to face with all those teams that were playoff teams and good teams, and you're playing a bunch of games in a short amount of span of nights, I wouldn't be as much going, we're good to go. But this is on the other end of that scale, Thrill House, to your point. 100%. Thomas says, honestly, I'm thinking what McDonald wants. It could be he believes in McCampbell, but all of us got to remember he is the linebacker whisperer. Yeah, he might. And I will trust Thomas as much as I'm railing against this. If the team goes with Giot Campbell, I think with what Mike did last year in targeting Tyrese Knight, if he's looking at the situation going, I'm going to get my Roquan Smith, like Ernest Jones is fine, but this guy's Roquan Smith. And he's looking at it thinking that that's going to be that. I would understand it from his standpoint. I still don't like having a guy you're sitting on the bench for a couple of years, but maybe they sit Tyrese Knight on the bench at that point. Maybe they're like, yeah, you're not as good as him. You'll have to wait your turn now. Maybe hard to see it on that one a little bit, but it is a possibility. Brian Myers. B, it's other draft experts that look at his physical skills and project the transition. I mean, I kind of get that in general ways, but I think what's happening, in my opinion, on this, Brian, is that it's being done from a bit of and why I guess I'm getting a little bit up in arms on it is because I think it's being done a little bit from the lazy approach. Oh, Micah Parsons did it. Oh, we're in a draft where there's an Abdul Carter and a Jalen Walker. So then this guy just gets kind of thrown in because of that. And I think it just is, I think that's kind of the long and the short of it a little bit with this. Versus really like, how good is he? Can he really give you much off the edge? Knowing how hard it is for guys coming off the edge to win. Guys like Boye Mafe and Derek Hall, which were much further along in their advancement coming out of college as edge players, had a hard time initially giving you any success coming off the edge. And what you're hoping to do is to get some value out of Jihad Campbell by being able to use him off the edge so that you're not just having him sit on the bench through the first couple of years, but if it takes him a couple of years to become a good edge player, and so he's just giving you snaps out there, and then once he's actually a decent edge, now you got to put him back into middle linebacker. That's where I just worry about we're spinning our wheels a little bit there then, and that's what I would call wasted motion a little bit there too. But if Mike wants him, you know, as someone said, he's linebacker whisperer. I'm not pushing back against that. And part of this is too the Jordan Brooks aspect of this. Just you've done this before, and it's. I always say this is like, you get things wrong, but fix your mistakes. You get this wrong, you come 3 years down the line to a similar situation, remember the thing that happened 3 years prior. Don't forget it. Don't relearn lessons. You know, keep them moving, keep them stacking and keeping them moving, and correct it as you go as you can. Orchie says, I don't know about Pierce. He reminds me of another Tennessee edge that played there, Darrell Taylor. Same position, even off the field problems. No thank you on Pierce. Taylor clone. Not a big Pierce guy either. I'm really not. I can acknowledge he's a first-round talent. He does have a very good pressure rate coming out of college. He's got a little bit of the Jackson Dart thing equivalency for the edge, being that he got a lot of his production built upon some lesser opponents this past year. And when he had to go up against legitimate tackles out there, that he was a lot more lessened in his productivity. But I think there's some character concerns potentially there with him too. In addition, it has me a little bit out on this. Think you could solo AD? Aaron Donald? No. I would need double team help. I'd be before the snap looking at my center, being like, okay, jack off. Don't even think of going over there to the nose. I don't care what the play said. You're coming over helping me out on Donald. That's what you're doing. Now I'll explain it to the coach after the game, okay? Hey coach, I needed help on Aaron Donald. How do you think that's going to go? I don't care. He'll get over it. You're helping me out on AD. Look at him. He's got rabies. He's frothing at the mouth right now. He's literally, look at him. He's frothing right there. No, you're not helping out the nose tackle. No, you're not helping out on Michael Brockers. Aaron Donald, you're helping with me. Get over here. Get over here. I fired Brock in press pass because he knows it's the best. Thank you, Gooba Garth. I appreciate that, man. Throw else the edge that I'm in love with is Ezeruku. I can't say any of these damn names. I'm getting worse. I feel like I should be getting better at my name pronunciation, but I'm getting wholly worse. It's awful. He's great. I'm just calling him Donovan. The Boise State, Boston College Donovan is just really, really fun edge, really complete edge. So many different, he's got maybe the most pass rush moves of anybody in the draft, and he knows how to use them. Just an excellent plan. He's got the dip, bend, some quickness, the traditional markers you look for with the edges and what they can bring with that skill set coming off that edge. He also sounds like a real leader in that locker room. I think this is a guy that a lot of Hawk fans should be very aware of, Ezeruku, as a guy that could really appeal to the Hawks, not just because of all the high-end productivity, like 19 sacks this past year, plays the run really well, very advanced in his skill set coming off the edge, but also because of the leadership qualities that they might like and gravitate towards too. Hervosos says, I'm tired of the NFL banning plays. Have they banned a lot of plays? I guess they've maybe done some. Chris B checked out possible UDFAs. There's a few that have my interest. I can only do so many mocks. Laughed out loud. we're slowly getting into mock draft fatigue. That's true, Tris. I'm finding myself there as well on that. And it's a real thing. It's a real thing. I'm starting to get into some of them. Current count right now sees me at, so I'm about 233 prospects in. So it's kind of the next 70 that are more of those guys that are kind of on the back end of things. But there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of undrafted guys that I put 6th or 7th round grades on them, but could easily dip, on their way out the draft fully. I think there'll be a big meaty camp of that, because once you get through the early parts of the 5th round, you're pretty much into that territory. And so there'll be more than ever, I think, this year on that one. That's another part of why people call this a little bit of a weaker draft. It's dealing with the segments kind of as the buns of the draft. Your top bun and your bottom bun, your first round, blue chip kind of talent's a little not as heavy. And then the back end of the draft's very heavy with a lot of these 5th, 6th guy rounds that are just guys that could just as easily drop out and be UDFAs. But I'm just kind of getting into that territory, Chris. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, be able to really catch up on this. I keep trying to ramp it up a little bit. I'm also getting that spot, though, of these went 230 in where the eyes are just starting to go a little. Nervoso says banning the tush push would be bad for the sport because there's absolutely no reason to do it. I'm not super strongly opinion on this. I have a general opinion on this, but I'm okay if they want to keep it too. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. Is there any way to buy picks? Maybe buy trade? Yeah. The Detroit Lions bought, Detroit Lions bought picks, I believe. It's one way or the other. It was in that Stafford Lions trade. And I believe that the Lions were able to get a little bit back in more in return because they were taking on the Goff salary of things. They were essentially sort of saving the Rams from a pending salary decision on Goff. And so they were able to get a little bit more back than you would think they were going to get because of that. And there's been some of those trades like that in the past. And there was a Brock Osweiler trade back in the day between the Texans and somebody where it might have been the Broncos were, maybe not the Broncos, somebody, but the trade parameters were essentially one team takes on the cap space of this player and then they're going to get the pick back. Like there was some talk this offseason that the Browns Dogzilla might do this with Deshaun Watson, where they go to a team and they say, we're going to trade you to Deshaun Watson and you're going to get Deshaun and we're going to give you a first round pick and a high first round pick to take on the depths of that salary going into the future. So you can do it. Yeah, you can absolutely do it. Doesn't happen a lot, but. Warchi says, Brandon, have you looked into linebacker Tuavase Numora, Fresno State? Still think whoever gets that guy gets an actual first-year starter. He can play safety. I'm not sure about the safety ability on what I saw from tape with him, but I did take a look at him. Heavy hitting run defender. When I tell you he attacks the hole with maximum aggression. I mean, he is flying to the spot. Very good wrap and roll tackler in addition to being an upper end hitter for the position. I do think he's a little out of his depth at times in coverage, so I would be a little bit reticent to believe that he could play safety in addition to that. He just sometimes kind of drifts aimlessly when he's dropping into zone especially. He's got some good quickness, but considering he is undersized at 6'1", 221, he's also a little bit slow for the position. The guy plays hard. He'll eat up tackles, but I would say it's kind of hard for me to see a starting future with him, being that if you're going to be at 6'1" and 221, you're going to be missing a bit of that size. Well, I need you to be a little bit more into kind of that quickness angle of things, or at least give me the ranginess sideline to sideline sort of side of that. But I think he's got to be more instinctive and he's got to be quicker to the spot to overcome that. And that's a little bit harder for me to say. So for me to see that success will happen. It's a possibility with him on it, coming to that area of it, but that would put him more into a camp for me of being more of a depth guy, development guy that you'd get more, to me, 6th, 7th round, and you take a flyer on that point. But his run game instincts are great. Heavy hitter, really good tackler, does bring that aspect of things to bear, even at 221. So I like that. And there aren't a lot of hitters at the linebacker position in this draft, and it really stood out in his game as almost kind of a centerpiece of his game, War Chief. Rain legendary. I like Darius Alexander. He gave Gray Zabel a hard time in the Senior Bowl. Yeah, he's got a little bit of that Shamar Stewart kind of freak show build to him too, doesn't he, Rain? Had a good Senior Bowl. Real fun player. I do see kind of 3 tech in his future on it, but good second round guy. Real good second round guy. Uber Eats. I just put up 1,000 for Pumpkin to eat 1,000 treats this year. I think it's a lock. Oh, it's 100% a lock. 100%. She'll have that done in 6 months. So ends to over really good. Random in the house. What's up, Random McDaniel? Thanks for jumping in, brother. It's great to see you. Hey, Brody, just jumping on. Love the Sunday show. Think there's any smoke to the rumors about Teller from Cleveland or just filler noise? No, I think that there's smoke. John's driven right now in really my opinion in 2 different positions and only really, well, let's call it 3 positions technically. So nose tackle is one, but it's kind of gently so, but it's a need coming in this draft. But then you have guard and then you have cornerback Randall. And I think John does want to get things set up so that he doesn't walk into this draft in have-to mode. And right now you're in have-to mode when it comes to the interior of this offensive line. So getting Teller, though I don't think he is a significant upgrade, he does give you another competent body on that line. He is only 30 years old, so it's not insanely old. The play has been going backwards in recent years, but you've also been playing on Cleveland. You've been playing with a cavalcade of craptastic quarterbacks behind you and no defense and not the best of running backs and not really great skill position players you're throwing to, and hard for any guy to be on their best or look their best in that kind of environment. So it is a possibility here that they could make that move, would make some sense. I think that the hardest thing on this deal, probably Randall, would be getting Uchenna Nwosu not to slap him every day in the locker room. You know, you cost me a year. You cost me a year. just blindsiding Teller. You know, Teller's like toweling off. Bro, it was a year ago. When are you gonna let it go? I had to restructure. I can't be mad at him. It's literally can connect one to the other. Like that Teller blow made me have to now restructure that contract extension I just signed, made me have to also go through off-season surgery. F you, Wyatt Teller. That's maybe going to be the toughest one there for him, Randall, on this deal to get this one done. Where it's like, you know, better not, John. But he's a functional player for the position. It frees you up. You do need to get some bodies in there, Randall. It makes sense in that way. You don't want to go in the draft. You want to have as little of positions as you can have that driving need. That, look, if we don't take a guy, we're heading to a place of this being a disaster. And that's what will then drive you to take those picks of need. So give yourself the warm and fuzzies going into the draft by making that kind of move. And he's not going to cost you a lot. Certainly draft pick compensation will be very low. It really comes down to just he's going to eat some base salary on the cap. He's like $10 million or something maybe, but you can afford it. Spaces Vegas has us at 8.5 wins this season. Do they really? Somebody was saying on my stream the other night that they had us in last place. It's like, what? Well, we do need a true left guard. Yeah. It's a necessity right now. Chris is with me. He says Nwosu would have a thing or two to say to Teller. Yeah, exactly. Thomas, you have a good night, man. Appreciate you hanging in there with me. Mick Ferrer, give me Michael Williams. He said he grew up a Seahawks fan and he has a crazy ceiling as an edge. One of my favorite players in the draft, Mick. I don't have a lot of blue chip grades I give out, and this is my boldest blue chip grade. There's not another player in this draft. I tell you guys who I got my blue chip grades on. All of you are probably going to nod, and you're going to go, yeah. Mason Graham, yeah. Abdul Carter, okay, yeah. Travis Hunter, okay, yeah. Michael Williams is one of those guys that's one of my blue chip graded players in this draft, and I'm doing some advanced stuff with him as far as the projection, imagination stuff goes, but I love his upside. I love his ceiling. I love his fit to this defense, and hearing now that he was a Seahawks fan growing up, sign my happy ass up. Warchief says McMillan's fast as hell. I've seen him run away from corners fast. Warchief, I'd asked earlier on it. Let me know, because you've got some connection to this, okay? I know you got connection to the family there. What's with the work ethic stuff we're hearing about him right now? Like, is that real, or is it like Not real. Derek Carman will be a first rounder, reign legendary. You're right about that. He tests very similarly to Chris Jones. Same body type, same length. I had like 45 pressures he caused out of college in his final season. He's good to go the first round. Yeah. Moto, how you doing, Kyle? Good Garth Brennan. Is there any nose tackles you like outside of the first round if they don't get Grant? There is. Yes. I actually have a couple on this that I kind of like. In the third round, I like Jordan Phillips as kind of the next guy in that pecking order. And I really like Jordan Phillips a lot. Really like him a lot. I think there's some real true upside in that guy. He's like 20, 21 years old, really young. He'd be really fun. I like Jamari Caldwell as well, a little bit later in the third round. He's not quite Phillips or Grant, point of attack, just completely being immovable, but good enough. And he also does give you a little bit more of a penetrator there as a nose in that way. But good build, good player. Should be a solid nose tackle no matter what in this league for what he brings on that. Either of those two guys in the third round. Another guy that I really like a lot is Nazir Stackhouse. He's maybe really only going to give you being a run defender, and that's just out there to kind of give you just that. But I trust that he's going to bring that skill and bring it to bear well. So he's another one that stands to me in the fourth round as a guy that could be in there. Black Yaha, late fourth, fifth round guy, big body guy. The tape's a little back and forth on him. Senior Bowl was a little bit hot and cold with him, but he's got the size. He's got the ability there to do it. Outside of that, it'd be more kind of fifth round guys. And fifth round guys that I don't know that I'd have a lot of trust in being able to fill that role of a nose tackle position. Like either of these two guys, I wouldn't think in JJ Puegs or CJ West, that either of those two guys would really be guys that would be necessarily even better than a Cameron Young. They might be, but I wouldn't have a lot of confidence in the fifth round in taking him there. Thrill House, Brando. So you're saying Fannin has Kenny the Jet Dutch granny knees? Kinda. But shoot, Kenny got through like a 12-year career with those knees. We just need him for like a good 5 or 6. That's all. Cool, baseball's back. I could be annoyed by another C team now. Offseason will be so much quicker. I feel for Mariner fans. God, I do. I'm glad I did check out though. Can't do it. BGZ, what's up, man? It's good to see you in the house. Pattern recognition expert, extra money. How much has been spent on the offensive line? We have as little as anybody in the NFL as far as money spent on the offensive line. We are spending, right now we're spending pennies. Pennies. Nick says Cowboys are silly enough to pay Parsons whatever he wants. They might. I mean, they've made some weird moves in the past with contracts and paying guys. Remember Jalen Smith-Steele, the inside linebacker, how fast they paid him and how much that bit them on the butt. There was some talk about 4 or 5 days ago about there being a heavy push at the Cowboys trying to move Dak Prescott to the Browns. And the Browns were going to make a run for him. And I don't know how it could work because the Cowboys aren't in a position to eat the cap that they'd have to eat to make that move. But if they do move Dak, I think that certainly then does increase very, very strongly the possibility that Parsons is also moved in addition to it, doesn't it? Kind of a situation to monitor and track potentially, especially with Alan Durd having some connection, especially with the Seahawks sitting on the cap space they're sitting on. I wouldn't say I'm predicting it by any measure or that there's really like even a feasible possibility, but if it does come up, you could see how that could start to twist in a weird, unique way. Dogzilla says, what happens if Geno and the Raiders can't agree on a contract? We're in an unprecedented situation, Dogzilla. At that point, teams make a trade for a quarterback like this, the deal always ends up getting done. It doesn't come down to like not. I think a deal gets done eventually here. I do. But it is weird that it's taken as long as it's taken. I think what you're intimating is, would Raiders sort of end up trading him? No, I don't think they would. They'll be like, look, we have a third. We're sitting pat on this one. But it's weird that the deal hasn't been signed. It speaks to how much Geno, I think, is wanting to be paid in this situation and that he's trying to top out the market on this contract. All the more reason why it was smart to trade him. Not trying to pay Geno Smith at the top of the market money for him. Don't want to do that. Bob Sweet says baseball has extra innings. Football has sudden death. The old George Carlin bit, Bob. I love it, man. It's one of the great bits, folks. Even if you're not a George Carlin guy, it's one of his older bits. But him talking about the difference between baseball and football, great stuff. So good. George was one of my all-time favorites. Rain says, I was disappointed. I thought Christian Haynes would be better than Bradford. Everyone's saying it during last offseason, including me, man. I thought so as well, Rain. Supposed to come in, ready-made, ready to go. Here we go. Let's go. Just wasn't ready to go. Maybe an offseason he'll be back up to snuff. Maybe just needs an offseason in that weight room, get that body right, get stronger, and here he goes. Mick, Brandon, if we end up drafting Grady Sable, where do you want him to line up at? I would certainly prefer to try to make it work with him at left guard first, and then if you've got to settle up at center, you settle up at center. I think the ideal would be, though, Mick, to the heart of your question on this, is that you take Ray Zabel and then you take a Donovan Jackson in addition to that. You've gone out there and found another guy that is a left guard guy to then kick, I think, Zabel to where my instincts on this is that Zabel is going to be the best player, his best self at the center position. He can be functional at guard, but he can be best self at center. So that would be a bit of my drive in it, is that I'd probably want to move him to center. But if you do get caught into the conundrum of not having taken that left guard somewhere in this draft, it's a good enough one to do, and he's better than whatever else you had drafted, left guard becomes more of the position that's more vital for him to fill in the short term. But I think long term, when it's all said and done, when we're 4 or 5 years down the road, I think Zabel's a center in this league. Rain says, I don't think John Schneider drafting Gray Zabel is going to be best player available. That cost us a lot of drafting need. Agreed, Rain. Part of thinking with Zabel is that they would trade back before they would take him. They get more into the late 20s. Pattern recognition expert says, expect the bottom line and profit to be more important than playoff wins. Just might. You never know on that. T-Man, Isaac Tesla is pretty intriguing. A 7th round UDFA receiver. Pretty nice catchy guy. Isaac Tesla. Okay. Try to get around over to him, T-Man. Still got a few receivers I'm trying to cook through on the top of. Kick up. I wish we had signed Geno to a $42 million contract. I know his age is bad, but I feel like he is 2 tiers better than Darnold, especially since how well he manages under pressure. It's looking like he's won more than that 45 territory, it sounds like. Kick up, Brando, have you ever had a cancellation attempt towards you? I don't think so. I don't feel like I have. No. I mean, I've set off my random people here and there, kick up. I think individually there's definitely times where I've pissed off my share of the fan base, and that they're definitely, I don't know if they go to cancellation, but they just, they don't watch anymore. It's kind of like a cancellation at that point. So I know I've had my moments like that with that, but I'm a passionate man. What can I say? Okay. A lot of passion. It's hard to always keep it under wraps. So one of the best argument I've seen is that they ban jumping over the line of scrimmage on defense and special teams. They should on offense too. Yeah, I'm okay with it. And I'm not really driven hard line on an opinion with the tush push one way or the other. I just do think, again, that why did you change the kickoff rules? What was at the heart of that? Well, you wanted to first get to safety. And then in the reasoning of getting to safety, you remove the kickoff as ever really happening. It's just touchback city now all the time. So you looked at that and you said, ooh, we don't like automatic plays. Automatic plays are not really all that good for the sport. That's not makes it better entertainment. So let's try to move where we can automatic plays. And when it comes to that tush push, it's basically an automatic play. And so when it comes down to that, if we're being driven by that we want to remove this stuff from the game that's better for the sport not to have that type of stuff, then I'm kind of with it. But again, I'm not also a guy that's, going to sit here and die on this hill. It doesn't matter that much, Kickup, I understand the argument about how defense could toughen up and learn how to stop the tush push, but why take away a dominant play from the Super Bowl winning team? I don't care if it means that the Hawks are soft. Yeah, and again, it's not a big deal for me. I was making a reference earlier on this Kickup that, there's a time 10 years ago where the Legion of Boom did a lot of pressing at the line of scrimmage and they were super physical. Brandon Brown or Richard Sherman. The NFL then came in the offseason after you had won a Super Bowl, after you've been to back-to-back Super Bowls, and they're like, ooh, this Super Bowl winning roster team has something that's working in their favor. We've got to remove that advantage from them. So I guess maybe there's just a bit of bitterness in my own little heart on this one where I go, well, it's okay for it to happen to us, but it ain't okay to happen to somebody else. Do I got that math right? I kind of feel a little bit like that on this one. So it's kind of like, well, look, if, again, we're driven by consistency and being principled in our nature from an NFL standpoint and what's having us make this rule or make that rule, then let's remain consistent in our approach. And that'd be my main push with it. But again, don't have it. If they want to keep it in, I'm not going to bitch and moan about that. I'll be all right with it. Jeffrey A. Thistle, thank you for the $10 donation. Jeffrey, very kind of you, brother. It's good to see you in the house too as well. We don't draft or trade for one elite level guard. I might sell my season tickets and not renew my YouTube TV. I'm not satisfied with how we addressed an issue even the most casual fans can see. I think your frustration's in a place where a lot of folks are at on that. And when it comes to the offensive line, I'm definitely at my wit's end, and I'm watching very closely what John's going to do to address this offensive line this draft and what really the plan is in place on this one. I think that the team was really driven, and just an outlook of where I stand on the Jeffrey, but I think that the team understood the problems that are at play with the line and that they could have gone out there and signed guys. I think that if they were going to sign guys, they're going to dress it that way in the way that they get the immediate quick returns. I think some of that was pushed then by their thought process that they were ready to compete and contend this year. And I think that the team looked internally at themselves and they said, we're not ready to do that. So understanding that that's the reality of it, we should let that then inform us to not go for the quick fix on the offensive line, but to just try to build it appropriate and right, which means draft and development. It doesn't mean that the frustration isn't valid and that the people being at their wits' end aren't in the right place or have rightful cause to feel the way you do and to where you're at. I completely get where you're at with it. And taking a step back after 10 years of being a little bit better than mediocre season in, season out is a tough, hard pill to swallow. But that's just kind of where my outlook is on why they did what they've done here, as opposed to it being just gross negligence and that John just hates offensive linemen and he just doesn't want to sign one. I think it's the former rather than that latter. But I can understand the people potentially like yourself who see it a little bit more as a latter situation on that one, Jeffrey. I can. I get where you're coming from, man. I thank you for the donation. Hopefully they're able to, take care of this line in a major way to give you some confidence on that on the other side. Chris says, I'm 4 games in and I'm already annoyed with the M's. I had to bail out last year before the start of the season, Chris, and I don't say that proudly. I don't say it to rub the nose in any Mariner fans that are trying to be loyal and to this team, but it's four decades of the same song. Sometimes there's some songs you hear on the radio that get effed out. You hear Hotel California come on the radio and you're like, dude, just you hear the opening, ding, 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 off goes the thing, right? There's a couple of those songs, Beck's Loser. I'm a loser, baby, off. So it's gotten to that point for me with that where the Mariners are an effed out song on the radio. And I've heard it too much, too often, and I don't want to hear the damn song ever again. I can go the rest of my life without having to hear that song ever again. And I hope that they are good this year. I hope they give those, because man, the Mariner fans have been so loyal, so true to the team. I hope finally this year maybe they can give you guys some hope, but it doesn't look like so far that's been the case. It is cool, War Chief, they did sign the catcher. I was thinking for sure that he was going to get out of town. Gumagarth, Chenna's new number 7. Daniel, I don't think the Raiders have to make a deal for Geno. They trade a late 3rd round pick. If he's a 1-year starter, let Shedeur develop. It's still worth it. Yeah, I can see that. Maybe that's where it goes down to is there's like, we're not going to do it. What are you going to do, Geno? You ain't going to hold out. You ain't holding out at 35. You'll play through the final year of your deal and you'll like it. Maybe they go that route with it. Maybe we're going to get Dark Pete. This is the new Dark Pete. You've had the player friendly Pete. Now you're going to get Dark Pete. And I'm here for it. I like the sound of Dark Pete. Only, Jarrell is thinking about changing his number back to 70, his college number. It's always hard with offensive linemen. They don't get given the cool numbers. Alvis Akamak, fun idea. Move up the fins for Campbell. Give him 82 and a fourth and 26. AZ Thomas, Mason Taylor, Jared Wilson, Mari Caldwell, Chase Lund, Ted Buchanan, Bashard Wright, and Ricky White. Thoughts? Love it. Great draft, Alpha. I don't know if you're going to get Chase Lunt that far down the line. I think he goes a little bit earlier than that. But all those are really good players. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. Appreciate you for that. Did you hear the dude from the 33rd team Dan Bien had on? Covered wide receivers. Dude compared Besh to Puka. Said total dog. Also said Tech is more slot than Emeka is. Ted McMillan's more slot than... that's a first for me. On that one round, thank you for the donation. Looking right now up at Ted McMillan's stuff here to see where he was at as far as his usage goes. So, 588 snaps wide, Randall, 117 snaps out of the slot. So, at the college level, basically 1/6 of his snaps were out of the slot, but that's with most X wide receivers. I think you're going to get probably pretty close to those marks of things. So I don't think there's anything in his college usage that speaks to him being I don't think that there's anything in college that speaks to, let's bounce them both. It's like, this is where it's, again, like, maybe the guy's right on it. I don't know. I feel like there's something I'm missing at times on the wide receiver slot stuff with all of this. And what's really weird with this, like, it's just kind of a new development here, Randall, with that, where it's like in this outlook of guys being at the college level doing something, and then they're going to come to the pro level and they'll do something else. I really don't quite get it. It's like, if you can't do it at college, you're not going to sorry, 1 second here. Okay. So let me get to the thing I'm trying to get to here. Where is it? Okay. So, Randall, we've got Emeka Egbuka here listed, and I know he ran the 4.4, Randall, but like I've talked about this for years in the past. The Ohio State track is insanely fast. So when they take the pro day times at the Ohio State track, you've got to take that with a grain of salt, because it's not to be just built into like, oh yeah, it's that fast. Everybody runs insanely fast on that Ohio State track. Everybody does. And it does not match up to what you see from them on tape. But we go over here, we look at him right here, and these are the snaps for him in college, right? And we go over and we see we've got 343 snaps. Line there, we've got 81% slot percentage is how he's utilized. 72% the year before that, 68% before that. Meanwhile, we go to Ted McMillan, and he's got 21% of the time in the slot. He's the inverse of Emeka, 78% wide. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Randall, too, as well with this, because this is where I'm really searching for my curiosity to be kind of quenched into understanding it, so I can fix where the hole is in my game and my outlook of this. Not because I'm right on this, but I really want to try to understand this better. That historically speaking, when I've had slot guys that have played only slot at the college level, that they typically are slots at the next level. They don't typically just, oh yeah, they transfer late right out to the outside, no problem. That's just how it goes. Doesn't tend to work that way. And then a guy to the inverse of this that's played as an X receiver on the outside, who now is going to go into the slot full time. I don't know. I feel like in a lot of ways I'm missing something, with it on that outlook of it. And Emeka is really loved and really but he is a slot. I mean, that's where he's going to be. He's not a 4-4-5 guy on tape, burning past people out on the outside. He's not going to do that. And Ohio State used him in this way for a reason. They kicked him in and had him inside because they knew that that's where he was to be used best. These college programs are not dumb. Ohio State program just won a national title. I mean, that's part of this assessment too, isn't it? Is that when you say a guy like Emeka is going to be a guy who's actually going to transition to the outside at the pro level, you're like, oh, okay, so then Ohio State got him wrong. They utilized him in the wrong fashion. They didn't utilize him then where he was at his best. And that's where we start to get into where I'm just going, well, what are we basing that upon? Like, what are we really, what's the background to coming to this assessment? And I'm trying to really get to it. I really am. It's just, I can't see that as well. I'm glad to hear though, that he's there on Besh with Puka. My initial kind of comp with Puka with Besh was to sort of say, it's kind of like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua had a baby, because there's a lot of the contested catch stuff he brings to play that's really a little more of a centerpiece point of Puka's game. But it's kind of the yak stuff that he brings is a big part of like what I loved with what you got out of Cooper Kupp's game and the route running and just how he moved. But I'll take Puka too, man. I think both comps are really good comps. Thank you for the donation. But yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with the I'm struggling a little bit with the slot. Got Luther Burden's another one that comes up in this way where I go, well, just how? And I might be wrong. I might just be like, this is where the new game is going, that it's, Lord knows there's so many other positions, Randall, that are becoming interchangeable and they're blending together, like safeties are just, blending together. Maybe we're going to get into this age now where it's like nose tackles and 3 techs are blending together and X and Z and slot receivers are all kind of going to blend together. It might be the way that this is going too. That's where I say this might be the place where I'm missing the hole in my game on this a little bit with that. El Nino, Desmond Watson the 7th, or am I unfanning the Hawks? Brian E., I'll hold off on criticizing John Schneider until after the draft, and we've had a chance to see whether Benton can shift our starters to another gear. I like that approach, Brian. I'm in the same place. Kind of let's see where it lands at. Stone Cold Seahawks, Chenna's new number is number 7. Washington Fish Quest, thank you for 41 months. Oh my goodness, Washington Fish Quest. You're getting up there, brother. You're getting up there on that. Any good nose tackle prospects in the late rounds? What makes a good nose tackle? What makes a good nose tackle is still, it's become an extra skill onto it. It used to be very simplified on this Washington Fish Quest where it was, do not get moved. Come hell or high water, come 2 blockers pressing down your back, do not get moved. Take up those 2 blockers. Find a way to keep your linebackers clear. These are really the things that you would ask them to do. Whereas, you're asking other positions, Washington Fish Quest, to be instinctive and get to this spot and go make the tackle and rally the ball. Nose tackle, you're saying, hey, nobody pushes you off this spot. I think what's happened in the modern era is that there's more of a draw now to need these guys to be a factor in the wide zone game. And that these guys get targeted in the wide zone game to where if they can't laterally get out there to the edge, you've got a gaping hole that's been opened up now for the cutback for the running back. Like maybe the hole is designed to go to the outside, but that outside zone gives a lot of freedom to the running back that if that hole to the middle kind of opens up, that B gap hole starts to slide open, then you can whisk your way right in through there. And so I would say there are a couple of defensive tackle, nose tackle guys who could be okay in that spot, but are these guys going to fulfill the nature of those requirements for the position like I'm talking about? I'm not as sure on that. I think you're going to have to draft early to kind of go get those guys that can be more certain guys. We've tried recently Washington Fish Quest, even in the 4th round in recent years with the Cameron Young, to go get that nose tackle there. And it's too late. You've got to go get a higher guy up, a better guy up to get legitimacy rather than just get a body. So I can bring up J.J. Puegs, Ole Miss, C.J. West, Indiana nose tackle. Both 2 different kind of players, both very interesting players for separate reasons. Both might be able to fit that bill to some degree. To to a small degree. I think both of them actually would be able to do better with the wide zone stuff from the nose tackle position more than they'd be able to do the traditional stuff, which Washington Fisquest from the hunkering down and being immobile, handle the double team type stuff. But I think you're going to more have to probably grab in the first 3 rounds if you want to get a quality nose tackle as opposed to just getting a nose tackle. But great question, man. It's been a little bit more advanced in recent years from what it used to be there. They got to do a little bit more than they used to have to do, I think. Still got to be big. Still got to be big. Chase Stern, thank you for the $5 donation, Chase. Hey, Brando, who's a player that you have an infatuation with this year? Mine is Matthew Golden. Probably would be, for me, Kenneth Grant. Michael Williams is the main one. Michael Williams is the guy that's really caught my eye, and I really love the idea of being able to land a guy at 18 who I believe is a blue chip prospect. But Grant's right there with him. I think that those are kind of my 1-2 guys in this draft as far as that goes. I certainly, as somebody's mentioned above there, Randall was mentioned above, I like me some Jack Besh, wide receiver. It's kind of a little bit of a separate round, but I really like him as a player. But if we're talking first round, I'd probably be looking at those 2 guys. Tet McMillan's another guy that I like quite a bit. Quite a bit. Jay Stern, watching Matthew Golden's tape will reveal how much Quinn Ewers sucks. It does. You appreciate what those poor Texas receivers had to go through out there. It's some brutal tape. Zach says Burton did play better when they used him all over. Yeah, they did have him kind of used weirdly last year, Zach, a bit, but it was a very high rate in that slot. He's like 80% rocking out the slot. Randall, thank you for the $5 donation. He says, I was thrown off by the Tech comp. The guy seemed like he knew his stuff. I believe, don't quote me, but Tech did his best work from the slot. Odd for a 6'5" guy. Yeah, I mean, there's big slots in the past, certainly. We've had Marquez Colston type guys and Michael Thomas type guys with the Saints that have served this role in the past and been very effective in that way. But I see him as more of a pure X. And I think that I would have been in the place, Randall, of thinking this is a guy who maybe has to be kicked inside if he was not able to put the testing times up there that were legitimate. I was trying to see what Michael Thomas ran here. So in Michael Thomas, you had a guy that was more 4.57 combine in what he ran, but he had the quickness for the same kind of a similar build, though he was a couple inches shorter than Tet. He wasn't going to have the catch radius of Tet with the long arms like McMillan. McMillan's a better prospect. McMillan ran a 4.48 at his pro day, so he's legitimately a shade faster than a Michael Thomas type if we're looking at trying to say he's going to just be a big slot. And that's where I would say, Randall, to me, that I don't get the comp there either. I see an X. I see a guy that's going to win as an X. It isn't a matter of whether he can play on the outside. It's a matter of really whether or not, what's the top end for him on the outside. Can he realize the potential that he hints at like a Michael Evans? Or is he more of a guy that's kind of a poor man Michael Evans? Effective, but not star. That's where, to me, really the question needs to be with Ted if we're going to be asking there. But I just don't see a slot future for him on that. That one definitely is one that throws me off, Randall, and doesn't fit to what I remember to see from him from the tape, where really was exclusively for the most part used inside with just a little bit of a smattering of slot snaps. And every X is going to get some slot snaps over the course of a game. Maybe you got a little bit more at 20% than maybe your typical X. Trying to think of who else is another pure X in this draft, Randall. Look at like Trey Harris would be maybe a guy to compare this up against. Yeah, so Trey Harris at 86. So there's 5% maybe difference here, 5 to 6% difference between the two on the slot usage. But all X's are going to have that 10 to 15%. Some of it's the scheme you're trying to use as well are going to have some of those slot snaps just naturally built within the design of plays. You're going to do condensed splits. Those are technically slot snaps, but you're not necessarily playing slot. Your alignment's just out of the slot. Or chooses, I think they're looking at T-Mac McMillan when it comes to the slot is more like saying a receiver tight end base, because basically that's what it is from the point of view. I get it. Yeah, just that I just think of him as more of he just feels like to me a real pure X. Like you can use him in there, you know. Where'd you be if you could choose only one player in between Angry Doug or Tyler Lockett to play the number 2 for Largent? Who would you choose? I would choose Doug Baldwin. I like Tyler, but pair Doug up with Largent and he feasts. Lockett would do good too, but Zach says the Mechas have more of a slot than Burden? Probably. Stone Cold says, seems Shanahan type offense doesn't really need a wide receiver to take the top off. They use the tight end. Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, it has historically looked to have those guys. You know, we had those guys back in the Holmgren days when we ran the West Coast offense. I go back to Shanahan and the Denver Broncos. You had Rod Smith as kind of your X receiver out at that time with Elway. But yeah, maybe it's the way it is going here. You know, this is maybe a little bit more, especially with the move the chains kind of offense coming to the forefront with the cover 2 shell defenses, forcing teams to grind their way up the field. Now you need more grinders, you need more route runners, you need more just get open, make the 7-yard catch, and let's keep this ball rolling. It could be where this game's going. Zach says also Besh won't last in the 50s. I know, man. Zach, don't take my hope, brother. Don't take my hope. Not that you're not right. Oh, but you are right. You're right, man. He's a fun nose tackle, that kid out of Florida, El Nino. He can't move at all, but maybe you can get him to drop 100 pounds or something. Yeah, Grant's a beast. Dune Moose, having substantial cap space sounds great. Some general managers in the situation got a hole burning in their pocket and splurged with a massive idiotic contract to the wrong guy. Please, let's not do that. It was at the forefront, to your point of this, Dune Moose, exactly of what I was at the beginning of the show today, as far as really the main point I wanted to make with the thrust of the opening of the show, which is that we're in a great position. We've got a lot of versatility and flexibility to do a lot of different moves right now, moving into the future. But instead of feeling like we got a hole burning in a pocket, let's, instead of doing that, let's wait. Let's see where this team, let's see how you draft. Let's see where the team's at in OTAs. Let's see where the team's at in training camp. Let's see where the team's at the deadline. And if you've come forward as a team and that you're lighting the world on fire and you're coming alive, then maybe you make some of those moves at that time, or even have a really a heavy push here to have Dune them roll a lot of this money over into the 2026 cap. That'd be a big push from what I'd like to see. Sounds like you're kind of in the same place. Zach, I agree. Tet's Mike Evans 2.0 to me. Again, we come back to was Mike Evans coming out of Texas A&M and people were saying, that guy needs to be moved to the slot. Let's see, by the way, I don't know if they have the data from back then, but it might be kind of a fun exercise if I can find it. Yeah, I don't think they have the data back then. Before PFF, unfortunately, here. I was going to try to see if I could find the slot snaps for Mike Evans back at Texas A&M. But no dice. No dice. Catalyst, how you doing? Hey, B, even here in enemy territory in AZ. I hope you're making your way through good out there. It's good to see you, brother. Jeff says, Dan thinks we possibly have a type of wide receiver we like for this offense. Abuka is also a team leader, exceptional character, lifelong Seahawks fan. Would be cool if you could have Stanton on and ask him. Highly recommended. Even just today, Jeff, I promise you guys I'll do this. I will reach out to Rob here today, and let's see if we can maybe set up a show with him on Sunday, if he's open to it. And I'll try to work with him on a timeline with it. But I'll reach out to him. I've been meaning to have him on, and it's been my own kind of fault dropping the ball in that one, because I've wanted to have him on, and this is a great time of year to have him on. As he's been covering for years these drafts at a very, very close degree, and does some great work. Chris, isn't Savion Williams an X or flanker receiver? He's a little bit of a guy that you kind of use all over the place, I would quotient to say with him. He certainly is very capable of playing to the X side of it. I wouldn't ever say that that's not a guy who can't get off press coverage. I think that his versatility is kind of some of what sets him apart a bit. But he's got the size to do it on the outside. His size, speed to do that on the outside, get off the press coverage. He's twitchy. So, he's got an ability to not just have to get straight line explosive, but to be able to get around the press. That's really the thing with the X, is that what is their plan? What is their ability to get around the press coverage? Or are they in a position as a player to get pressed to death? Do they have short arms? Are they light? Are they skinny? Are they thin? Does one good press just stop them in their tracks? Can they fight through that? They got a little bit of wiggle? Can they give a little bit of that juke move release and do it quickly and get off the line of scrimmage fast? These are the things you're really looking for. Savion's got that with him in his bag, but I would expect him to be used kind of in a lot of different places, but mainly outside would be how you'd roll him. I think Z would be the other spot with him too, Chris, where it's a little bit of X and Z mixture. Random McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. Because Larry Fitzgerald was great at slot when they slid him in there. Yeah, he was a very good slot. And of course, they slid him at the end of the career there, Randall, and it was the lack of speed. Guy played so long and had played so much, he did lose a little bit of speed there at the end. And so to still keep him effective, there was a lot of using him into that slot. But there was certainly a much higher rate of using him in that slot later in his career than how they used him early in his career in that way. Because he had the speed initially to be able to create the separation on the outside. Parker arriving Mar-a-Lago. Gatlas, love Baldwin's release. Even Amon Brown praised him for his release. One of the better ones of his era, man. It was nasty. There's a good couple of cut-ups where you had guys just about falling down with what he gave them on that release. Zach says this type of offense, the type of receiver this offense is missing is Rashid Shaheed. That's burden more than a Mecca. Hell, Noel is Lockett 2.0, and you can get him in the second. Maybe so. Remember, too, Zach, we did get Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Certainly, he's not a game breaker in any way, but he's at least to fit on the surface of that big play, receiving part. But you could stand up, reinforce those ranks. It's possible with those two guys. I mean, the thing for me with it is just the guys doing the slot at the college level, man. I don't see a lot of guys. In fact, I can't even, in my opinion right now, I cannot, for the life of me, come up with one wide receiver outside of maybe Justin Jefferson who played predominantly out of the slot in college, who was able to play with a lot of time to the outside once he got to the pro level. That's the only guy I can think of. And this is what makes me reticent and skeptical of some of these guys that operate in the slot. And with Luther Burden, like to your point, Zach, okay, you're right with the 85% slot rate last year, but he was 81% with his slot rate the prior year to that. So he's not playing in the college level on the outside at all. He's explosive. He might have the ability to do the outside stuff, but I keep coming back to that where it's like the lessons I've learned of prior drafts is this hard-lined lesson, is that over and over again, I'm faced with these guys that are slot guys at the college level who are then slot guys at the pro level, and it just doesn't go vice versa. Even a guy like Lockett who has some slot size to him, slot length to him, but did the outside stuff at college at Kansas State. And so the transition was going to be apples for apples a little bit there with it. And I know that with Emeka, he runs the 4.48 there, Zach, but he's running it on that Ohio State fast track. That's probably the fastest track in the nation for any college program as far as artificially pushing up numbers of guys in their 40 time. It's renowned for doing it. And he's not on tape really a 4.5 guy. He's kind of more a 4.6 guy on tape. 4.55, 4.6 guy. And I don't know with Emeka that's going to win on the outside. I would grant you that Luther is going to be faster than him, but come back to, again, just that the history's been that the college program there at Missouri is we're going to use this guy at the slot. That's where he's best. It's probably where he's going to be best at the pro level too. Guys aren't going to tend to be used out of alignment there. Checking one other thing here. Yeah, so the other part of this with the with the Luther Burden angle of this is the 31 and 1/4 inch arms. Not full T-Rex, but not long arms as well. And that's another little bit of a component you look for on some of these guys with it is where's the arm length out to play on the outside. Typically, you want to look at past 32 inches long as kind of the premeditated prerequisite out there. You can't have guys that can get by that aren't at that length. Tyler, for instance, wasn't a 32-inch long arms, that's for sure. But that does tend to be a little bit of the requirement there to make that work in addition to that. And he's also, with Burden, a little bit shorter on the arms to quite get to that mark. But again, I will admit on this in my own way on this as that I may be a little bit behind the ball as it's evolving to, where the sport's going to in this way, and that maybe it's less precipitated on these guys needing to have that as we go into the future. Thrill House, if Kenneth Grant can only do 21 BP reps, how is he going to be a blue chip nose tackle against NFL guards? What I tend to find with most folks with the bench press that they don't take into account, and one thing that's usually a very important thing to take into account is going to be arm length, I would say. If I have a guy at 32-inch long arms and he's doing a bench press and I set him up against a guy that's got 33.5-inch long arms, the guy with 33.5 launch arms, Thrill House, has to go an extra 1.5 inches on that bench press. And so, I'm sure you'd reference this back to like Nick Emawari, and it's like Nick Amawari's arm length is, I don't think anywhere near the same size as Grant. I'm looking at Grant right now. He's 33.5. Those are long arms. It's harder. I always reference this, Thrill House. When I was going to high school back in the day, our guy who set the bench press record, one of my really good friend, set the bench press record. He had really stubby arms. So when he's doing the bench press, he's going like this. And then you'd watch somebody get in there with long arms and try to do their max bench, and they've got to go way down here and then way back up there. And he's over there just doing this. And he's fully locking out. He's not cheating. He's locking out. But it's just that arm length makes a difference in doing the bench. And really when it comes down to this as a bottom line, you're not looking for the bench as an indicator of their power. The bench press is really an indication of work ethic. Are you a worker? Do you put in the work? And the arm length is going to be taken into account with the reps that you push out. The power and strength you're going to look for on the tape. And the thing with Kenneth Grant, Thrill House, is when you turn on the tape, the power and all of that stuff is on wide display. There's not a question of it at all. Evan, really hope we go BPA at 18 and Higgins from Iowa State falls to 50. I think we can be the top one wide receiver in the NFL and one of the best wideouts in the class. He's really good, Evan. It wouldn't shock me if he became that. Fun player and very, very popular player too. Cozina, Jimmy, do you think there could be any additional signings before the trade deadline? Yeah. Well, I think I was mentioning the trade deadline. Cozina is just a way that you hold your money until that spot. You see where your team's at. Team gets off to a 4-2 spot start that you feel like, okay, hey, let's go make a trade and we can take on some salary. You could throw a late round pick and let's try to see if this season can be something. But you wait to kind of make that move at that point. Bob Swede, would Jordan Addison be a good fit? Maybe. I mean, he's a Z receiver. You have a bit of a need for that, but you have to pay him a lot of money. And the Vikings would then not want to pay him that money. But I don't know if I want to pay him $24 million a year. He's probably up for something like that kind of deal. Is Pumpkin trapped in her new litter box? She's out laying around different spots. She's hard to pin down. Jordan Lynn, I just subscribed to HBO and now I can watch the Bleacher Report. Any good episodes I should go back and watch? I don't know. Jordan, if you go to the community post, I posted all of our reactions to the games on the Bleacher Report this year when I was on there as a guest. But nothing off the top of my head. I know Brendan's doing some stuff over there. Zach says he had surgery this year. He's had surgery multiple times. I've been watching MVS for years. He's unreliable. We need another wide receiver 3. I'm with it. I'm with it completely on that. Nublax Jefferson is a unique case because he played outside and then the slot in his last year at LSU. There we go. I didn't concentrate too much on him in that draft because we were just not in the range to get him, but that makes a little more sense as to why he's able then to kind of do more of the transition to the outside there. Randall, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, Randy likes Trey Harris and Besh. Round 2, 3 guys? Yeah. Harris seems to be a real big riser in this draft in a major way, and a guy that very well possibly could move up into more of a higher region of the second round. But there is some injury stuff there a little bit with him too, which could bump him into more of the second, third round range. I think late second, early third on both of those guys, Randall, is kind of around where you might see them. But both players as well with this, I could see somebody falling in love with them and making them an earlier pick in the second round. I could definitely see that. Chris B, please check out Efton Chisholm. Trying to wish it into existence. We get him late. Kupp and Baldwin are who he looks up to. Well, I actually had a chance to look at Chisholm, man. So I know it doesn't seem like I'm getting through some of these guys. So Efton Chisholm, our Eastern Washington University local kid, 5'10", 200 pounds, quick, but with even quicker change of direction slot artist. So really, really loved his change of direction and quickness. Over 200 catches and 21 touchdowns receiving over the past 2 years alone. He can sink low and really burn in and out of his breaks. Two-prong routes like zipper routes. I mean, he just creates a bunch of separation. So what I mean by two-prong routes would be routes where you're coming off the line of scrimmage, you start to one direction, you come back to another direction. And mainly I reference the zipper route being the main one, which is kind of his tried and true kind of route, where the zipper route, you run it inside and you make it look a little bit like an in-cutting over route, and then you come to a stop, and then you just cut it back out. So it's like a zipper. That's why they call it a zipper route, just like a zipper. So he runs that zipper route just to perfection, but routes in general where he's got to essentially do a double dip cut of things, he's really able to create separation that way that stands out. Strong run after the catch abilities. He moves like a running back with the ball in his hands. He runs hard, creatively looking for the extra cut to extend the play. He's got a sweet, efficient juke move that makes defenders miss. Really efficient and really effective. Helps him in the bubble screen game. He's hard to get your hands on, but if you do, you are likely to bring him down. So he's not a guy who's going to fight through contact. That's okay. He's a receiver. Kind of insane leaping ability for his size, with his ability to extend to the catch, though he is working with shorter arms, which we get back to why you stay in the slot. This is definitely a slot guy, but did very much stand out to where when he wanted to explode and go up high for a ball, he had the capability of going up there and doing that, and it did stand out. I think his long speed is average at best. He is at times a little bit more of a body catcher than a hands catcher. Some of that's a bit of the shorter arms, just what you see in shorter arm guys. They're going to do that stuff in general. He does have a slight history of doing return duties as well. Late round guy, and it could be fun. You want to have a guy like that 7th round or undrafted rookie free agent type of guy. I wouldn't have any problem with that, Chris. But the change of direction quickness was what really stood out with him, and runs really tough with the ball in his hands. Fun player. Zach says, Trey Harris has some of the worst route running for any wide receiver in this class. If the Seahawks want Besh, they'll have to trade up in the second. Not a big trade guy, huh? Oh. Space, do you guys think we're going to play 2 quarterbacks like Drew Taysom's style? I don't think so, Space. No. I don't think that'd be the idea. No. I think that they just kind of fell into that, the Saints. I don't think most teams want to angle to try to do that. Catalyst definitely need to get a nose tackle. Grant Phillips, hell, double dip on another day 1 and day 3. I'm with it, man. Both those guys sign me up. And I'm a little bit bigger on the Trey Harris route running than you are, Zach, with it, but we'll see on that one. He's an interesting prospect where he could easily go into the 3rd round. It just does seem like he's getting a little bit more push up the boards at the moment. A little more push up the boards. Taker 610, thank you for the $2 donation. Day 1 is 3 weeks from Thursday. Let's go. Draft is on deck, folks. I hope you're ready. Draft miss is almost here. Have you made your list to Santa? You told them what you wanted? Bob, I can't wait for the draft either, brother. Zach, Wyatt Milliams comps will freeze. That could be how John shuts Seahawks fans up with not getting freeze. Here you go. Take that. You happy now? That's how I picture John. Zach, that's how I picture John drafting offensive linemen this year. There. Have that. Happy now? Eat it. Eat that. Slams the dish on the table. That's how I see it in my mind, Zach, with John when he picks the lineman this year. Catalyst says, I wonder what team makes a bizarre pick. Ooh, this year's got as much a chance as any year, Catalyst, because there's such a wide, I think, difference of opinion on these players in this draft. Does a guy like a Shamar Stewart just catch the apple of some eye of some team and they make a crazy high selection of him? He's the kind of guy where that could happen in this draft. And Mawari, another guy out there, that could be like that too. It's the sort of draft this year setting up to kind of be that way a little bit. Max Bailey, JJ Pegas for fullback and for president. Chris, I can see the Rams taking him. I can see that too, Chris. Yeah. Especially a little bit more of a need now for them with the receiver position and having a little bit more need for the slot. They're going to want to get some insurance in there for Puka Nacua. Max, I think Jalen Monroe could be a mini Taysom Hill. I wonder how his hands are. They're small, they're tiny hands, Max. We know that about them. They're little baby mitts. But that's the benefit of Monroe, even if you think he's really rough and tough and it's going to take some time to get to where he's going to get to, is that you can get some immediate impact from him by using him in kind of a specialized role. I don't think you're going to bring him in for quarterback snaps necessarily. It'll be more for that fullback, tight end, running back kind of role that you'd fit him into there, I think. Anthony Lux, aloha from Vancouver North. Brando, after witnessing the Big Cat last year, how would you plan to replace him in the future? Thank you, Brando. Well, great to see you, Anthony, and thanks for checking in from Vancouver. I hope all is well up there. I think there's really not necessarily a need of thinking about replacing him into the future on this one. And the main reason for this would be kind of two reasons. Number one, these kind of defensive tackles like this, Anthony, that come out in a draft, they're a high-picked guy, they've been very successful in their career. They are the guys that can tend to play pretty long careers in the league. You know, there's a lot of similarities in Big Cat to a guy like an Ndamukong Suh. Those guys were selected very close in the draft of where they were picked. And so what I mean by kind of at the heart of this, Anthony, is that you have a guy that's really ultimately supremely talented. They get to be 32, 33. They lose a little bit of that half step, maybe lose a little bit of power, but they're smarter, more cerebral, more technically gifted than they've ever been. And they're able to offset a little bit of that lack of physical ability now to still remain a productive player. They may not be what they were in their prime, but still remain a very productive player. And then the second part of this, Anthony, is that you've got Byron Murphy. That's your heir apparent there at the 3-tech position. That's the guy who will slide right in there and take those starter snaps when Big Cat does take that step back eventually. So you've got the replacement in-house. It's going to be a long period of time to me before Big Cat's really at the place. This is a guy I could see easily playing into his mid-30s and still playing very well. But that tends to be the way that these guys go, historically speaking, if they want to play that long. Some guys make their millions and they want out by that point, but then those guys aren't leaving the sport because they're physically unable. It's more of I got paid and I'm chilling now. But good to see you in the house, Anthony. David, what's up, buddy? Happy Sunday to you too as well. Zacho. In some timeline, we draft Zabel with 18. The fan base is extremely happy. Zabel turns out to be terrible, and the fan base blames JS. Okay, it could be. I could see it going that way, Zach. You speak a truth. Zach says Stewart can go 8 or could go 38. Who knows? I'm in that place, Zach. That's part of that thing I say where I'm like, I still, usually by this time of year, 3 weeks out, I've got a good foundational feeling of the top 12 picks. May not know exactly where the guys are going to go in exactly the right spots, but you know really the top 12 guys. It's not that way this year. And it just feels, and it's really kind of just instinctually, it feels like things are kind of wild and all over the place as far as some of the evaluations on these players. And Stewart is kind of one of the tip of the spear guys in that way. And just takes one team to, I don't know if you're old enough, Zach, to remember Mike Mamula. It just takes one team to get Mike Mamula'd. And then that's enough to override it. With Tyree Wilson a couple of years ago with the Raiders had the same kind of situation, the freakishness of the size, and he's so big and he's so long, and just ends up, you get caught up, man. You get caught up. Space. Thank you for the $10 donation, Space. That's very, 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 very kind of you. I missed a couple of donations here. Oh, no, I got that. I got these ones. Okay, good. We're good here. Let me make sure. Okay. Thank you, Space, for the $10 donation. It says, hey, Brandon, why do we draft for talent and not for need? Well, it's more you draft for value, but I mean, you're right about value being the more talented player. The reason that you do this is because the NFL is very hard to beat out other teams. The parity of the sport, any given Sunday, how close all of these teams are together versus other sports space where there is much more of a very, very keen delineation between the good, the bad, the in-between. NFL, there's a lot of teams that are just right in that same spot. And so when you approach anything, free agency or the draft or player development, when you go at any one thing and you're not smart in your approach, you will pay the price for doing so. And on the surface of it, there may be a smart approach to the outlook of saying, we have these holes on the team, so let's address these holes on the team, and then our team will be in better shape for it. But what that ends up taking you away from is taking the most talented guy. And if you do that over a long enough period of time, I'm not taking the most talented guy, I'm taking the need. I'm taking the need, not the most talented, but I'm taking the need. Well, now you end up a couple years down the line and you have an under-talented team that may have all of its holes filled, but it's not particularly talented. So then how do you get to the other end of that? How do you get to the most talented team? How do you get to the place where you can maximize all of the possible talent that we can bring into the house? Well, going into your drafts and taking the best player on the board, taking the best possible player that you can go and grab. And so it's one that is not just something that, this plays out in theory space, but this is something to where you can see organizations who years have let that process be their driving mode and organizations who for years have let need be more of the driving mode. And you can see that this is not one where there's a lot of variance in the success and failures. The team that drafts for value, the team that stays in that pocket is the team that ultimately is the most successful. The Eagles got a Super Bowl last year because when they're there picking at 10 in the first round, and they could go address different other needs that they may have in that moment. Maybe an outside corner, for instance. Well, let's take Gonzalez as our outside corner there. No, we've got a higher grade on Jalen Carter. Gonzalez, great player, fits to the need that we have. But we really like Jalen Carter. This is a Hall of Fame talent. We got Fletcher Cox on the roster, though. We got the Milton Williams guy that just signed the incredible contract with the Patriots pace, the defensive tackle that had a really good Super Bowl. You got him on the roster. You got Jordan Davis that you just took in the first round 2 years ago. Don't care. Draft for value. And it pays off. It pays off for them. The Baltimore Ravens have spent a decade being a contending team right there with everybody else. And it isn't just because you hit on Lamar Jackson. It's because their process is wholly driven by a value-based model. And it allows them to always keep their roster stocked up to the ultimate in that way because they don't deviate. They don't fluctuate. They stay in that pocket. So there's just so much proof to this being the right process space and so much proof to the latter and so much failure to the latter when you try to go a different direction. Save the geese, don't be surprised if John takes safety at 18 or day 2. Starks would be my guess. He mentioned scouting the safety position from the radio show. I could see it, man. Starks could be a guy too that I could see them really falling in love with. His tape is divine. His draft positioning would see him go right about that spot in the draft. And he fits to the scheme with his skill set and the many different dimensions that he brings to the field. There's also the part of this is another smart thing that a team does is you're getting ahead of the position a year out. Rather than reacting to something going on with Kobe Bryant, maybe you don't want to pay him after this year. Well, now instead of having to search at that time, you've already got the heir apparent there ready to take over. I just mentioned the Eagles. This is something that the Eagles have done. That's something that you do with that Jalen Carter pick. You don't have the pathway for him to start immediately. He's going to be a bit of a rotational guy coming through. But now you've got the guy ready-made to step in there for Fletcher Cox when he eventually does retire. Or in this case of a Kobe Bryant, if he does move on and gets signed to some decent-sized deal after this offseason. So Starks is a possibility there. Absolutely is. Basically, you're kind of rolling the dice either way. And if you hit on a player that you need to save money and have younger talent. There's always a rolling of the dice in the draft all the time there, Space. But that's where we come back to why a team like the Ravens, if it's all a roll of the dice on this space, and the drafting for value is one that has its fluctuations up and down, well, then they don't have that 15 years, 20 years of consistency. And with the Ravens, their draft process, so why I gravitate to them as an example here is because you have 20 years of very similar organizational like-mindedness all the way throughout. It's mainly Ozzie Newsome, but when Ozzie Newsome gave it to DaCosta and moved on and handed it to DaCosta had been working under Ozzie Newsome and operated from the same mindset of his approach in the value-based model of approach. So if there was that fluctuation of teams that operate this way, then you would have seen more of the dips in the Baltimore Ravens program rather than the pure lack of consistency that we are seeing in them being a true, contender type team here over this 15, 20-year period in which they've also won 2 Super Bowls. So it's one where there really is not as much necessarily luck to this. There is luck to the draft in general, and it doesn't guarantee success operating from a value-based model that you're going to, knock every draft out of the park. But it gets you closer to the direction of success in a draft versus drafting for need, which takes you further away from possible success in a draft. And it's proven out time and time again. And it's been proven out here in Seattle time and time again. Like the LJ Collier pick. That's a pick that's purely for need. The Eskridge pick. That's a pick purely for need. Got Waldron coming in. We need a gadget guy. We need a bubble screen guy. We need a fly sweep guy. Let's grab this guy here. Is he the best player on the board? No, but we need it. Didn't work out. You start overlooking things in the player a little bit too. Start looking past deficiencies in their game. That's also what you're doing in grabbing that need. Because then the need ends up driving it, not the player's talent. Zach says, I guess, but when they started going BPF years ago, that's when our drafts improved. Exactly, Zach. Exactly. That's another place where we have a great example of this. And John's referenced it, to your point, Zach. He's referenced multiple times because you got to ask Space so much about it the last couple of years. John, what have you done differently? Why has the last 3 drafts been so great? What new inventive thing have you done? Have you brought in some new scouting resource? No, we drafted for value. And he said it to a man every time over and over again, Thrill House, roses are red, violets are blue. Who's stomping on me? Ndamukong Suh. Game Zone reactions. Jalen Milroe has the same hand size as Pickett and Michael Vick. Oh, there we go. I don't know if it's, I don't know if in Pickett's case that's a representation of success, but Michael got through it okay. Thrill House, Brando, favorite walk-in movie of all time. Favorite pure walk-in movie of all time is not exactly a walk-in movie, because that would be Pulp Fiction. And he's only really got the monologue in that, but what a monologue it is. This watch, little man, was in your daddy's ass 5 long years, and that Hanawai pin of hell. Your daddy died, give me the watch. I held this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass for 2 years. And now, little man, I give it to you. It's a great scene. I think my favorite walk-in movie, though, Deer Hunter's so depressing. I think it'd be The Dead Zone, the Stephen King one. That might be my favorite walk-in. He's got a lot of good ones, though, man. Guy's got a hell of a anthology, whatever they call that. Brian says so many ways to fill needs. What teams have the full control over is BPA the majority of the time. Amen. Yeah, you can do need through other ways. You can do need through trade. You can do need through free agency. But draft should be operated from pure value. Catalyst says, the hell are the Steelers doing at quarterback? Are they going to reach? All they got is Mason Rudolph. I get the impression that Mike Tomlin kind of went to the front office and he's like, no, we'll get Aaron in here eventually. Trust me, guys. No, we will. 100% for sure. No. It will. I promise. Just he needs his time. So I get the impression it's something like that. Space says, gotcha. Thanks, Brandon. Anytime, Space. Thank you for the $10 donation. It's a great question, man. And it's kind of one of the most important questions at this time of year because so often there is so much of at times a drive from folks within the fan base that, aren't thinking as much on to go to that need, side of it. So it's always good to make sure you're keeping in mind and it's at the forefront. And certainly I think it's going to be with the team in addition to this. Zach says Steelers should have kept Russ. Hell, that's what DK's wanted, I'm guessing. Probably. I'd probably say that's probably the case there. I don't know if DK thought they were getting Rodgers when he's walking in there. Maybe they did, but Walking in True Romance is good too. That's a good one right there as well. That's probably one of my all-time favorite pure scenes is the Dennis Hopper Walker scene in True Romance. I mean, that's as good as it gets from writing to direction, masterclass in acting. Fantastic scene. Fantastic. Bob Swede, fill the needs with free agents and draft for depth and a couple of starters. Let's go, Bob. I'm with it, man. I am with it. Guys, I hate the needs-based model. Our drafting was so bad between 26 and 21 when we were doing that. I think, true, this is space touches on something Catalyst does as to why I'm so ferocious in saying stay in the value-based model is because that we heartily lived in the need-based model from 16 to 21 to Catalyst point. We got to see the other end of the spectrum on this one, and it's not pretty, and it wasn't pretty. And so this is part of why I'm a hardliner on this one. Dogzilla, Hawks are not on the edge of a breakthrough. They will go BPA with the first pick or two. Amen, Dogzilla. That's the way I see it going too. Anthony, Brando, would you be willing to trade up for Tyler Warren at tight end? If so, how many picks would you give up to get him? Indy 100% is taking him at 14. I'm not as high on Tyler Warren as others are, Anthony. I have a second round grade on him, so he's not a blue chip graded guy for me in this draft. I think there's a lot of good parts to his game. I think some of this is that the Gronk comps have gotten a little bit out of control. And even in a guy like Gronkowski, that was a guy taken in the second round, not taken up at the top of the first round. I think Brock Bowers' success last year is also driving a lot of the influence of this pick being early. And I don't think that you want to be the team that gets caught up in that and artificially taking a player early because you're thinking he's going to be this guy. I don't think he's Brock Bowers. I don't think he's Gronkowski. There are some Gronkowski elements to him. He's not the blocker of Gronkowski. He's not got quite the length of Gronkowski. Not quite into quite the place of contact, catch place of Gronkowski in that way. And I don't see him as Brock Bowers, where Brock Bowers had so much wiggle in his route running and ability to create separation. And one of the reasons that you get the Gronk comps with Tyler Warren is because he is a little bit stiff as an athlete. Like Gronk, he can overcome it, but it is a part of what you see from him on tape. And I like Warren quite a bit, but I do think that that's what's kind of causing him to go up there. I think you're also right that it's very likely the Colts do then end up taking him at 14 because they're caught up in that same Brock Bowers, Gronkowski imagination. But I'm going to make those kind of comps. Those comps have to fit. And if they don't fit, then we're sort of elevating a player artificially because we want him to be these guys rather than he is this guy. And so when it comes to these tight ends in the draft, I will admit, Anthony, I could be missing the boat on this one a bit. I'm not perfect. There's certainly going to be prospects that I don't get right. When it comes to Colston, Loveland, and Warren, I don't have first round grades on these two guys. I'm not at a spot where I can't sign off on that. I have high second round grades on both of them. But I'm looking historically at where the place is at, the position's at. There's a reason these guys don't tend to go in the top 15 in first rounds. And if they do, they need to be kind of freak shows, pure freak shows. Not like, they got some slight echoes of this player, but you're actually going, no, this guy's that. And I can't quite get there with Warren myself on that, though I do like him a lot. And I will say, Anthony, if they do take him in the first round at 18, I'm not going to be pissy about it. I get mad about reaches that are done where it's like 3 rounds of difference. And you're like, LJ Collier, I had a late third round grade on. You took him in the first. That's going to piss me off. Taking a Warren at 18 that you got an early second round grade on, that's fine. That's fine. Mick, I was sad at first when we signed Darnold, but I'm glad we're not doing what the Steelers did and wait for Aaron Rodgers to hold your team hostage. I am glad of that as well, Mick. I do think Aaron probably would have signed with Seattle at this point earlier than he's taking to go to Pittsburgh. I think he kind of wanted to get back to the West Coast, and he's begrudgingly going to take the Pittsburgh job because there's not really anything else out there for him. But I think he wanted Seattle. I think he wanted Minnesota. I think he's settling for Pittsburgh. Thank you, Dogzilla. Appreciate you, man. Orchie, my favorite walk-in movie will forever be King of New York. Another very good one. Boy, that's a gritty crime movie. I mean, that is as gritty as it gets. Abel Ferrara, man. That guy did not mess around. Cameron, thank you for the $5 donation. If Russell has another mediocre year this year with the Giants, are his Hall of Fame chances officially over? Take a look at something. He's on the edge. I think, when it's all said and done, he's right on the line. So let me show you something here. That ain't it. Sorry, give me a sec here. Where's it at? Where is it at? Okay, so what we're going to do is this. We're going to do this. Let's just knock all this out here. Sometimes this thing just does not want to. Too many windows opened up. Okay, so let's go with. Just want to show you this list. I think his in here is going to be through the passing yardage thing. That is his method in. So Tom Brady, Hall of Famer. Drew Brees, Hall of Famer. Peyton Manning, Hall of Famer. Brett Favre, Hall of Famer. Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, Dan Marino, Stafford. All those guys are Hall of Famers. Elway, Moon, Tarkenton, all of Hall of Famers. So Eli Manning, a little bit of Elway there at 11th all-time in passing yardage. But now we get down to the Eli Mannings, the Wilsons, who find themselves kind of around Carson Palmer, Vinny Testaverde, Joe Flacco, Drew Bledsoe. You're in that kind of level of things. I think it's going to be hard right there. And what will probably make it rough potentially is if there's more quarterbacks who come up to push Russell further back down with time. Like his best chances for getting in there, Cameron, are going to be able to get in there the quicker the better after his retirement. Because the more quarterbacks that push him down, the more he starts to get into that zone of quarterbacks that are not in, very good players who couldn't quite get in. I think he's right on the line. He's got like 8 or 9 Pro Bowls. Statistically, he's going to have the markers overall with touchdown passes. You also got to build into a little bit of this, Cameron, with him is the passing yardages to also give him credit for the rushing yards, where he's going to end up with like 4,500, 5,000 yards rushing, I think, something like that, right? And that is maybe a thing that'll be what'll allow him that little extra in where those other quarterbacks on that list that I presented don't have the rushing yardage that Russell has. And so he's at 5,400 yards. My goodness. So he's going to end up with almost 6,000 yards rushing in addition to the yards passing. Gets up to 50,000 yards cumulatively. He's got 350 touchdowns passing. He's got another 31 touchdowns rushing. I kind of think he gets in when it's all said and done, Cameron. He's been an ambassador for the sport. He's been a good player off the field for the most part. It's been a tough end. But I think that those are just, there's not a lot of quarterbacks running for 5,400 yards all-time NFL. And to have that in addition to throwing for what's going to be probably darn near close to 50,000 yards, that gives him almost 55,000 yards and 350 total touchdowns in his career. That's probably going to be enough. That's probably going to be enough. Stone Cold says 7 Psychopaths was a great walking movie too. It was. Pick your hands up. Lift your hands. No, I don't want to. Brendo, Walking was so good and Catch Me If You Can too. Made me feel sad for Frank wanting a happy family. He was good now. Yeah. Solid stuff. He's good. That's why I love Walk. That's why I do impressions of him. It's just like anything he's in, he's usually going to elevate. Rain says, I wouldn't trade up for Tyler Warren. Nah. War Chief, you got to let me know about the Tet thing. You got the inside info on McMillan. I've asked you a couple times. I need you to tell me what's up with him. Why are we hearing about this work ethic stuff? You know the family. Is he all clean on this? Are we all good on this, War Chief? I need the info. Zach, I'd trade out of the first before trading up for Warren or Loveland. Amen. Can't do it. Sean says, I say take Loveland 18 if he's there. I think he's better than Warren. Ooh. As Bowers is generational. There's a reason he went to the Raiders when all quarterbacks were off the board. Yeah, I say this is the guy with Bowers. When I say this about Warren and when I say this about Loveland, I was the guy who put a blue chip grade on Bowers last year. And you guys know with me, I don't throw blue chip grades around wantonly. I've got like 6 guys in this draft with blue chip grades. I may have had 8 or 9 guys last year with blue chip grades. But Bowers was one of those guys. There's just a difference on Bowers from Warren and Loveland. There's a difference there. There just is. They're really good players too, but that guy was a little bit more closer into the generational range than not. Yeah, the Dead Zone is a good flick, isn't it, Bob? Kind of haunting. That scene where they have the kids and he's like seeing the vision and the kids are on the hockey ice and they're dropping through the water and oof. New Blacks, Eli getting in and Russ getting left out would be an absolute joke. That would be a joke. I would say if Eli gets in, then Russ better get in. That's redonkulous East Coast bias BS if that goes out like that. But I also don't think Eli should get in. But, you know. Realize, does having a Walter Payton Man of the Year award get you over the top in the Hall of Fame? It may. It's going to be taken into account and probably should. You know, how you are as an ambassador, it shouldn't maybe be the whole overarching thing, you know, but if there's something where you're on the line and you're close, enough to push you past the finish line. Zacho says Stafford should absolutely not be a Hall of Famer. Eli's on the cusp. Yeah, Stafford's in at this point for sure. Winning the Super Bowl like he did. I think a lot of people are going to look at his career, Zacho, and say, you got stuck in Detroit. You know, that wasn't your fault. And if you had been a guy, you know, who had like played your whole career at Green Bay, for instance, you probably have more than the one Super Bowl win of Aaron Rodgers. You probably have more than the one Super Bowl appearance of Aaron Rodgers. And I think there's something to that. The landing zone for a player matters. Where you land matters. If Joe Montana went to the Cleveland Browns, guess who none of us would have ever have heard about? Yeah, and it's especially true to me with the quarterback position. Brian says, I feel the same way about Denzel Washington, whatever movie he's been in. There hasn't been a dog in the bunch. It's true. Another guy he always brings it, that's for sure. Always brings it. Snow Tiger, thank you for the $5 donation, Snow. For defensive head coach, solid quarterback is the number one need. Mike McDonald taking a dip this year. Howard is a good quarterback to project. He has seen the big stage and came through. I've kind of felt like that if you look at all the quarterbacks in this draft, Snow Tiger, and knowing that John does have, I think, a tendency to want to look towards those guys, have a little bit more size, arm strength, and some mobility, that the guy that kind of fully encapsulates all of what he might look to want to go get would be a guy like Howard, especially if he can go do what he did with Russell and landing the value of that player in the third round, taking a page out of his historical book to do this. But Howard brings a lot to the table, and he doesn't have any kind of sparkling attribute to him that really sets him apart and really allows him to shine in a way to really make him stand out. But he just does so much stuff very solidly. And I think that is a guy to me that resonates, to your point on that, of being very much a guy that I think John could align with. I could see how Mike McDonald would like him a lot. He is unique to some of the other quarterbacks in this draft who you have guys like Cam Ward and Shadir Sanders and Jackson Dart who, you know, have some things that are good to what they bring, but they're also a little bit undersized for where you'd like them to be. I mean, they're not tiny, they're not small, but they're not to the traditional norms of the position as well. And he does give you that, and seems like a leader and plays very smart. Has a lot of just little skills that he does. You know, knows how not to make the bad mistake, knows how to not make a bad play worse. Has things that you wouldn't always give a lot of credit to quarterbacks having, like just a magnificent play action game. His ball handling and faking defenses out, very unique in how he does it there at Ohio State, and was such a big factor to them for a team that was running the ball as much as they were to keep those defenses on their toes and kind of off guard a little bit about what play was coming in and out. as well as in addition to all this Snow Tiger, a guy that has had some pro concepts built within that Ohio State offense with Chip Kelly, where Chip Kelly went back from the pros back to college and took some of the pro stuff that he was developing there back to college rather than just running the pure college system of Oregon that he once ran before. He made some adjustments within that. And Howard got to benefit in that in his development on the back of it. So well said on your part all the way around. I thank you for the $5 donation. And I absolutely see this guy as being a real true candidate there for your Hawks to go out there and grab. 100%. War Chief, give me the info on Ted McMillan, War Chief 12. What's going on with Ted McMillan? Does he have work ethic stuff? The fact you're not answering me makes me think there might be something to this. I might have missed your response in there, but I'm hoping you had some inside info for us, War Chief. Because this stuff all just kind of came up out of nowhere. It's like, might not love the sport. Rain says Nick Amori only had 4 interceptions. Now we're taking the first round. Earl Thomas had 11 interceptions in Texas, and he was the top 14 pick. Yep. That's why Earl goes up, is that Earl was a ball hawk. Earl didn't just happen into those interceptions. Earl made those interceptions happening by being insanely rangy from center field, even in college. And yeah, Nick's got some flashy interceptions on his resume, but he's not a consistent kind of ball hawk. And Earl was a certified ball hawk coming out. Certified. Snow Tiger, thanks, Brandon. You are great at what you're doing. Well, thank you, Snow Tiger. I love the discussion on this, man, and Howard's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I've at this point raised him up above Dart. I went back and forth with them in the third round. They both are third round guys for me, Snow Tiger, but I've been kind of oscillating between the two, watch film of one, go back to the other, watch film of one, go back to the other, try to just, where do I stand on these two guys? And I just come back to when I put all the factors into play, I go out the wash on this and I'm like, I think I go a little more to Howard. A little bit more in there. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, I suppose, on that front of it. Hawks says, Tet apparently says he doesn't watch film by himself because he watches it in the film room with other receivers. Yeah, it's like, and that's the film that came out here the last couple days on Tet, where he's eating some food and he gets asked about it. And he's like, I don't really like watching film. I don't really like watching games. And there is some question that suddenly has kind of popped up out of the ether here about maybe some work ethic stuff with him a bit. And I don't know if it's true or not. I'm not saying it is. It is something we're starting to hear somewhat out of kind of nowhere here, Hawk. I'm like, what's going on here? Is this true? It's also the thing that maybe allowing him to drip and drop down in the first round to potentially us. Catalyst, I love ball hawks, but I also appreciate guys like Spoon. 100% Catalyst. 100%. Ball hawks just kind of one of those skills, but having guys like Spoons on the other side, that's the place too with Amari, where it's like, well, but is he also a ferocious, run around the field with reckless abandon, his hair's on fire, he's flying all over the place? Well, you don't get that either on the side of it with what he brings. He's just kind of solid all the way around. Carmen Schofield, thank you for the $5 donation. Carmen, Brandon, is there a player or players you would be disappointed if the Seahawks drafted, regardless of position or spot in the draft? It's a good question. Very good, great question, Carmen. Is there guys I'd be disappointed with? I can kind of tell you players that I'm sort of just not really, sold on. I'm sold on, but I wouldn't really like the pick because I just don't think that would be very smart. We were talking earlier today about Jihad Campbell. Jihad Campbell's amazing as far as a talent. He's the best inside linebacker in this draft. I don't want to pick him in the first round. I think that's almost a bit of a waste of pick to be grabbing him there. I'm not a big Jack Sawyer fan in this draft. There's a lot of people who love themselves Jack Sawyer. I watch the tape. I come away kind of underwhelmed. I think he's a player that's kind of topped out. He doesn't have a lot of explosiveness, dip, bend, none of the traditional things I really want to look for from the defensive end position. And I don't think he's overly powerful enough to offset that. And so that kind of gets me a little bit out on him there. Shamar Stewart or Nick Emawari in the first round. I don't want to do it. I think that's a pretty big reach for two players who should be second-round graded players, especially in Nick's case, the safety positions that's been a little bit devalued, I would say. I do not like Shamar Turner, another guy that a lot of Hawk fans like quite a bit. I'm not a big Shamar Turner fan. Alfred Collins is a guy a lot of people talk about as being a guy who could be a nose tackle. To me, he's more of a 3-tech run stuffer, and I don't really want that. I don't see the value in that when we're already loaded to the hilt with run stuffers. Yeah, not throwing run stuffers. We're loaded to the hilt with 3 techs. As far as offensively speaking goes, I probably have less guys that I'm really pulled away. I don't have as much of the guys on the offensive side of the ball that I'm as strongly opinioned to. I'm not a big fan of Emeka or Burden in this draft and taking another kind of slot guy. I sort of would like to avoid that in general terms. But for the most part, I would say there isn't anybody else really. There's 2 receivers I would point to that I don't want. I don't want Isaiah Bond, and I don't want Tez Johnson. Those would be 2 guys that I think offensively I'd be like, you can miss me with those 2 guys. I'm kind of good on those ones, Carmen, But otherwise, I'm pretty open-minded offensively across the board. I like most of the talents offensively speaking. Great question. And thanks for the donation. Thrill Alice Brando, have you scouted Pat Bryant yet? Yeah, I think I've taken a look at Pat Bryant. 6'2", 204, a little bit of shorter arms, 31 1/8 inch. He ran a 4.61 with a 1.56 10-yard split. Meh numbers there. Did jump 37.5 inches, which is nice. He's a traditional wide receiver, shares many similarities to UNLV's Ricky White. So I think those guys are very close. Good and efficient releases off the line of scrimmage, sharp cutting ability, good route runner, creates easy separation on any kind of route, breaking in especially. So the in-breaking routes, he's just deadly on. Good hands. He may not burn anyone over the top, but he also brings good contested catchability on the back of his best skill, which is his catch concentration. My cat's coughing up a hairball somewhere. You may be hearing that noise. And that's disgusting. Ugh. Cats. They're so gross sometimes. One thing I really like about the contested catchability too is he's a really good ball tracker, something you do tend to see with these guys that are contested catchers. He just stays locked in like an eagle dive bombing down on its prey. I mean, he is just, right into his hands. He's going to watch it all the way through and he's going to be right on top of it. He's really impressive at catching the ball out away from his body, vice grips for hands. He puts in work after the catch from an effort standpoint, but he's not giving you too much in that department. He's kind of bereft of any real moves out there. It's really kind of contested catchability, accentuated by being willing to be physical at the catch point, track the ball really well. You can create the separation with that real hard cutting. Him and Ricky White have this ability where it's just, they stab the ground, they cut inside, and bam, they're creating that separation. It's just that it's so quick and the lateral cut is so fast. It does tend to catch those cornerbacks off guard, especially as they're in the back pedal of their drop. And those 2 guys really stood out in this draft in that way, especially as guys that aren't necessarily highly drafted guys. In both of these 2 guys, with Ricky White, I've got him into the late third round, and with Pat Bryant. Now, in fact, it's kind of funny. I'm looking at my draft board right now, and I've got them both back to back in the late third round. So it goes, Ricky White, Pat Bryant, Tony Horton. Kind of my pecking order there a little bit. Good players. He's a good player. CLB, did you see the 400 pounds defensive tackle from Florida? Can we have him? We can, maybe if you want to take him in the 7th snail, but he's not a particularly good player. He probably has to lose about 100 pounds to see if you've got enough juice there for him to move around. You need nose tackles to actually move in space. It's not 1995 anymore. You got to have the guys be able to take more than one step to the left, one step to the right. And he's just too big to do that currently at the size he is. But if you want to take a flyer on him in the 7th round, I'm okay with it. I have a problem with it. Reigning legendary, Brian Branch was taken in the 2nd round, 45 overall, safety not worth 1st round pick. Amen and agreed. Amen and agreed. Not in this draft especially. Maybe a Starks could be at 18, but I'm okay going a different direction of it. That's for sure. Metal Dragon, this draft of this time of the draft process, it's hard to know what's real and what's put out there to try and drive a player down the board. True. So I'm trying to ask War Chief on this one because I want to get some inside info. War Chief says, B, all I can say about Tet Mack will be one of only a handful of NFL players to ever come from our small seaside town. That's pressure. When it comes to the job, he'll work hard. I know that. He's 6'6". So there we go. Well, that's why I wanted you to give some of the inside info. I kind of anticipated, War Chief, that was going to be your response. I'm asking you about this specifically, War Chief, because you do have some of that inside info knowing this family a little bit. And this is coming out now a little bit here with Tet and what we're hearing about him. And I'd like to put a stamp on it if we can to just shut it right down so that people know that when we do take him, if he does drop to 18, and hey, that'd be great if this is what causes him to fall to 18. Maybe not great for him, but great for us. But that if we then do take him at 18, that, you know, you can kind of be there to effusively get across to people on the channel here with this, that's going to be the case. That was the kind of the answer I was anticipating from you on that one. But that's what I want to make sure we do so that we can kind of cut out the knees of that rumor. If we get down a month down the line from this and this comes up like that, War Chief, kind of sensing this could be something that's a possibility with this now. So that had been my take on it as well, but did want to get your thoughts with that one a little bit. Brian says if Mike McDonald falls in love with the skill set of either of the top safeties, it's a done deal. I could see that. I could absolutely see that. Where she says in Hawaii, Tet McMillan has what we call bloodline. He's born from extraordinary warriors. No joke. Let's go, man. Let's go. I love that. I love that. Well, that makes me more warm and fuzzy. People getting us worried out there here with the work ethic stuff. But like someone else was saying, there's a lot of cloak and dagger stuff going on this time of year. War Chief, guys trying to get guys to drop down to him. And maybe that's what's kind of going on here with Tet right now. JL says, worst part about the draft is thinking about all the ballers and knowing we can't get them all. True enough. Do have 5 picks in the top 100, JL, so you can at least get a few of them, though. Catalyst, we have first world problems at 3-tech defensive tackle. Laughing out loud. Yes, we do. Good problem to have. We're Washington Fish Quest. Thank you for the $2 donation, Washington Fish Quest. Over under on number of cuts to commercial when we pick. What they'll do is they go to commercial right before that's now the Seattle Seahawks will be on deck next to the pick, and that's going to take us to a commercial. Just to let you guys know right now, we've got the Hawks on target here to be selecting here in the next 5 minutes left on the clock with them. But with that said, we need to go back to just commercial, catch up on our commercials at this time. So let's go back. So I'm going 2. And then once they come back off the second commercial, Washington Fish Quest, they're already to the next pick. And then you're just looking at the scroll beneath to try to see who we took. It's my guess. This is the way that this goes with us every year in the draft. Oh, look who could finally join us, huh? How you doing, man? How you doing? Glad you could finally grace us with your presence after 2 hours, 3 hours. Goodness grace. Thank you, Watch Fish Quest. And very true, man. Very true. Carmen says on Rob's podcast earlier, he spoke on Emeka Buka, and he indicated it's pretty customary for the Kubiak scheme to have receivers that are very similar. It's been mentioned in here as well, and I'm going to try to have Rob in on Sunday, and so maybe I can poke and prod around this to understand this a little bit better from Rob's mind of things. But Kubiak was with the Minnesota Vikings, and he had inherited the receivers that they had at the Vikings at that time. Justin Jefferson was very different from Adam Thielen. Those guys weren't similar. Last year, you had Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and you had Chris Olave, and you had Rashid Shaheed. Those are 3 completely different types of receivers, Carmen. 3 completely different types of receivers. I can go back to his father, Gary Kubiak, with the Houston Texans. Gary Kubiak did not have a receiver type that was the same type of receiver type all the way through. And I'm not trying to be argumentative on this. I'm literally trying to kind of understand this of like, people are saying that, but I just mentioned those names. So, okay, where are the stops where Kubiak has been at as an offensive coordinator where he had like-minded wide receivers all the way through there? And none of the places he's been at has that been the case. So I'm kind of on this one where I'm like, no, that's not been the way that the West Coast offense has never been run like that. And watching and covering this offense for 40 years and tracking it and all of its evolutions, I've never seen this offense at any given point where all of the receivers are essentially ubiquitous. The X no longer matters. The Z no longer matters. They can all be slots, and it's all okay. It may be that it's going that way, but that's where I don't know if I don't know where I kind of see on that one, Carmen, for where they're coming from with it, because that's not been the track record of the offense. It wasn't last year for the Saints. It wasn't when Kubiak was with the Vikings. It wasn't. They had 3 different receivers there that were all 3 different types of receivers and what they brought to play to the game. Carmen says he made the comparison to the Niners and how their receivers are all very similar. No DK types in the mix. Thoughts on that, Brandon? Jawan Jennings is nothing like Ricky Pearsall. Carmen. You know, Brandon Ayuk is nothing like Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall may have some similarities to a Deebo Samuel. Both of those guys are slot guys. But again, they're not similar, Carmen. Juwan Jennings is an intermediate number 2 wide receiver who's an outside ZX pure route runner, missing some speed, but gets open. Deebo Samuel is a running back receiver hybrid type that you utilize mainly out of the slot, and you're going to manufacture touches for. Ricky Pearsall is a pure slot that's going to do slot things and can do some of the things of Deebo, but he's not a Deebo replicant. And Brandon Ayuk, when he's healthy on the field, is an outside receiver that occasionally does slot stuff, but's a pure outside guy that creates separation on the outside. He's an X or a Z. So, yeah, I feel like I'm coming off being a-hole-ish on this. I'm not trying to be, but it's just like, that's where my elevator on this one, Carmen, ain't going all the way up to the top, because what is he talking about? And you know, that's where it's like, those are all separate receivers, and those receivers are not examples of the 49ers having receivers that are all the same type of guy. That's the example of what I'm talking about. That the offense is actually looking for different sets of receivers with different sets of skills to apply to different, very specific positions in this offense and what they're required to do. So I would not take that Niner team as a representation of that. Do they have a DK Metcalf type? Well, no, but Carmen, isn't there kind of like a lot of teams in the NFL that doesn't have a DK Metcalf type? Do they not have a burner, I guess, would be maybe the thing with this? A burner purely? I guess, you know, that's true enough. I think that's also, though, when we come back to that, Carmen, we also have to come back to now the differentiation and separation between the Kubiak scheme and the Shanahan scheme. So though Kubiak has worked underneath Shanahan, they have a different way of how they run their offenses. And the specific big difference between their 2 offenses is that Kubiak utilizes a lot more of the deeper throws down the field than Shanahan uses. So if it comes down to, we're not even talking about like receivers, but we're more talking about not the burners. Well, Kubiak needs more of the burners in his offense than Shanahan needs in his, because there's more of an onus on trying to work the deep stuff between the 2. But I'm also, this has been mentioned so much recently, Carmen, and not just by Rob, but by many, 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 many people in my chat. And it's getting mentioned out there by a lot of different other Seahawks content creators who seem to be very, very hot to trot on this idea. There seems to be something that is just born out in the mind of many folks out there of that we should do this multiple slot thing and like lean into this. So where I will go on this and say is that, look, I don't get the plan on this one. I think it's kind of stupid. But I'll also admit that when there's so many people saying this type of stuff, Carmen, when there's so many voices that are screaming from the darkness that this is what we should be doing, Burden or Emeka Ibuka, I got to say, it almost leads me to believe a little bit, maybe, Carmen, that maybe I'm being dumb on this, and that it's my stupidity on this that might be driven as much as anything else. That I'm just being a little bit of the slow kid in the class to pick up on the new trends, but to get me sold on it, I need much more than the gut instinct thing. Or if people make representations of comparisons, then the comparisons need to be apt and really true. But the history, Carmen, of this offense, it may be that we're moving into a new place. The history of this offense for 45, 50 years, going back to Bill Walsh, has been very set in stone in what you want from the receivers, what you require from the receivers, on what the receivers must do. When Mike Holmgren was here, Bobby Ingram wasn't working on the outside. Bobby Ingram came out onto the field when you had 3 wide receiver sets, and he was your slot. That's the way it worked. Now, maybe the game's changed in this major way, but I don't think so. And I need much more evidence of it than just kind of the gut instinct of it. But I'll admit again, man, when there's so many people mentioning it, Carmen, when there is so many, and I'll tell you this, today on the stream alone, I probably had 13 mentions of Emeka Egbuka and another 5 mentions of Luther Burden. And these are guys that get brought up consistently and continually here on the channel a lot to me. And so I'm kind of fighting this war a little bit, but I feel like maybe I'm losing the war and maybe I'm a bit off on it. And it may be my own stupidity with it. I always admit with it. I don't know all the answers on this. I can only kind of give you guys, when I give you an answer on it, what I understand about the track record of research I've done individually on these schemes, on these players, and then I just roll with that. And so others are going to have maybe a different outlook of it, and maybe I'm behind the 8 ball on it, but I'm going to need a lot more meat on this bone if someone's going to move me off my spot. And nobody's been able to do that up until this point. Nobody's been able to, for instance, when I mentioned in the chat earlier, Carmen, and said, hey, give me a representation of a guy outside of Justin Jefferson who's played always in the college in the slot, that they've been there 80% of the time in college, who's been able to go to the pros and move out to the outside and then work on the outside and be successful on the outside. And no one's been able to come up with one representation of that, which is, again, back to kind of the proof of the pudding of what I'm talking about, is that that's just not a transition that we see. But it is one right now that when it comes to the 12th man, and many fans out there, is very much at the forefront of their mind. I will acknowledge that part of it. I just don't quite get it. You know. Purdy's going to get paid. Sounds like 50 to 55 million. That's him. Zach says, I mean, MVS and Shaheed are pretty similar. She's just a better MVS, laughing out loud. Yeah, I think that's, and I think what you have there is that them bringing in MVS that in the year right there was that what they were doing is, rather than it being that's his like-minded receiver he looks for, you brought in MVS there to be the backup essentially to Shaheed, to be the guy that can come in there and, you know, if you lose Shaheed, now you don't just have no X receiver to go to, but that's your backup X, you know, in that situation. But like a guy like Olave, for instance, is a pure, I would say, Z receiver, for instance. When I look at Shaheed, I see MVS, I go, those are X's. Olave's a Z. Can occasionally do some slot stuff, but he's really a Z guy, you know. Did Ayuk go to Vegas? No. I don't think they're going to tag Purdy, man. It sounds like, Bob, they're getting very close to cementing a deal there. Zach says JSN and Kupp don't play all their snaps in the slot. Kupp's older and injury prone. Slot wide receiver in the first 4 picks isn't insane. It makes sense to me. Like I said, I could be behind the ball in this. I will readily admit it. I'm not empty talking on it. I swear to God, it may be just that I'm missing the boat on this one. But I do feel like I'm pretty right on with it, where I stand. I like when people soundboard other creators, takes off Brando because he keeps it real. Well, thank you, man. Goomba. I try to do that, man. I'll give you my guys' honest opinion. I'll definitely have my share of times I'm wrong, but I'm always going to just try to give you the honest assessment of how I see whatever we're talking about, you know, on that. Zach says JSN's slot snaps have gone down every year also. Wouldn't be surprised if he plays less than 50% of his reps in the slot. JSN has been and will continue to be a Devontae Adams. Yeah, that's a tough sell for me on that one, buddy. I think Devontae's got fairly larger arms than JSN as far as being able to go with that. But again, too, it's Devontae, if I go back to college in Fresno State, is he a slot guy? Is he an outside guy? He's used on the outside of Fresno State. He comes to the Packers. He's used outside with the Packers. JSN's on the Ohio State Buckeyes. He's a slot guy. That's how he's used. That's where he finds success. Comes to the pros, the NFL level through his first year and a half. He's mainly used within the slot. Very small smattering of snaps used to the outside. So it's, historically speaking, this is where it's gone. I mean, that's all I know I'm kind of being a repeater on this, but it's for the folks on this that are pushing this as the new way. There's a kind of a bit of I'm sensing a bit of a lack of acknowledgement on this is kind of a new thing you're coming up with. Like it may be the truth of this, but there's also the part of this where it's like, yeah, but you guys are kind of creating something new out of the ether here. That wasn't the thing. As I said before on this, nobody's been able to give me an example of a guy that's played mainly his slot snaps in college who suddenly becomes an outside guy at the pro level. And Zach, you just so Zach here, you're saying on this that you're saying JSN slot snaps have gone down every year also. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays less than 50%. So this is where, again, we come back to like, I'm kind of, Zach, missing a little bit of what's being said versus what the data says, what the data actually says. So what do I mean by this? Here's Jackson Smith-Njigba. Here's Jackson Smith-Njigba's graded charts, 2023 to 2024. When I slide over from 2023, what I tend to notice on this is that his slot snaps, he was aligned out in his first rookie year 31% of the time. In his second year, he was allotted wide last year 15% of the time. So you said in your post that every year his snaps on the outside have gone up, but in actuality, what the data says is that he got halved on his snaps last year working into the slot. And what do we know about the rookie year of Jackson Smith-Njigba? Kind of underwhelming. Kind of thought that we would want to see more from him, didn't we? What happens then when he saw his snap count to the slot increased last year? He doubled the amount of yards he had off his rookie year. So outside snaps from a wide receiver halved. Production last year doubled. Even if you disagree with me, at least you can hopefully you can see Zach on it, at least from where my standpoint's coming from on this with some of the skepticism. That'd be all I just ask for. Is we may not have agreement on it, but just that you can at least get where my skepticism comes from on this. Because he's not being run more to the outside. He's being run less. His effectiveness is at its best when he's from the slot, not when he's playing on the outside. Can he occasionally give you a little peppering of some outside play? Yeah, but you don't want the guy living out there 50% of the time. Because he doesn't have the separation speed-wise to clear people out there. He's not going to want to get off press coverage. It's not going to be to his benefit. And he's got a little bit of shorter arms, which aren't going to then help in contested catch situations. So you got an outside receiver who can't generate the separation with his speed, who's also got the shorter arms, which you mentioned the Davante Adams comp, but that's something Davante Adams does have. Now you're going to have that guy having a lot less effectiveness, in my opinion, when you work him out there. You know. Zach, it'll change because his slot reps have gone down both years in the NFL. Yep, they haven't though. You can see right here, Zach, with it, it hasn't gone down. And there's almost a 2-inch difference, I think, on just about their arm length as well with this. So with Jackson, we had 30.5-inch arms for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Davante Adams has 32 and 5/8-inch arms. So over 2 inches longer arms on Davante Adams than on Jackson Smith-Njigba. And it's really important. Speed's probably somewhat similar between the two there, Zach, but it's the combination. Don't have the speed, you're going to get more contested catches. Got to be a contested catch king. To be a contested catch king, you're going to probably need longer arms so you can extend past the cornerback and the cornerback can't knock the ball away. Shorter arms, lesser speed, less effectiveness on the outside. This is where, at least historically, that this has been in recent years with it. But I don't want to sound like a know-it-all with this, Zach. 100% don't. I don't want to come off as like, I may just be wrong on it, and there are so many people mentioning it that just seems to me to kind of more raise the chances of me maybe being off on this one a bit. For sure. Right, so they aren't really staying close to the receiver at all. Yeah, it's not quite there for me either on it with it. I'll still I love Jackson though. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Jackson's great. He's great as a slot guy, which we know can be a number one receiver in an offense now. You don't have to be a number one receiver outside to get the thing. My point, Devontae. Yeah, no, JSN's great. No, it was just about the comp thing, their space. It wasn't about JSN not being good. He's definitely good. Me, how you doing, me? You caught me a little late here, brother. We're just kind of wrapping on up here a bit. It's good to see you in the house, though. Hawkall, hey all. What's up, Hawkall? Join in as well. It's good to see you guys in there. Jordan says Adam's slowing down while with a worse quarterback. Not surprised he has less production. Yeah, he's getting up there. It's understandable that he starts to lose a little bit of a step and not be at his best anymore. Space, everybody's getting on you for blocking Brian E, man. You got to let him back. Let him back in, Space. Brian says Adams only played in slot 25% of the time in Fresno. There we go. Yeah, thank you. You looked that up for me. I appreciate that, Brian. So that fits to what I'm thinking on this, which is that, you get the guys on the outside that'll be outside receivers at the NFL level. You backtrack them to college. They're going to spend about 75 to 80% of the time on the outside, 20% to the slot. Some of those are going to be slot snaps. Some of those are just going to be condensed split snaps to where they're in slot alignments. But that doesn't make them a slot then. It makes them more to the outside kind of receiver a little bit. So we'll go ahead and get in last couple questions if we can here over on the stream. Appreciate you guys watching today. If you guys could for me, hit that like button, maybe sub on up if you get a chance. I really appreciate it. Helps out the channel, helps us grow. We got a lot of stuff lined up here over the next couple of weeks here as far as draft coverage goes. We're going to be here on Tuesday back with the B&B show, looking at defensive tackles. So look at your notifications for that. We've got also the roundtable on Tuesday night. We'll be out there with the boys on that side of things. Coming back, I think we'll get a Wednesday show on in. Thursday back with the B&B. I forget which positional group we're looking at there, but we're going to keep it rolling. So you're going to be getting some extra B&B shows over the next couple of weeks as we do a little bit of a deep dive into the prospects in this draft and kind of go through them one by one a little bit on this side of it. So do keep an eye on your notification board on that side of it. If you are as well a member of the channel, we just yesterday did another call-in show. I'm going to be doing these about once every 2 weeks as they've been very popular. But very big key here is to be keeping an eye on your community post because that's where I'm going to be putting the notifications for the call-in streams over there to that side of for members of the channel. So do keep an eye on your community post to get those membership benefits as we'd love to make sure that we can keep this thing rolling and going and cooking if possible. Thrill House Brando. Who do you see more on the field, Kupp or JVS or an early draft pick? I would see Kupp in the first year more there early on. I think MVS is going to fit to more of the deep role. Probably more see MVS out there when you are running 3 wide receiver sets. I think whoever you draft early on is a guy that you're looking for more of a development, that guy to then lock into year 2 as the more of the starter at that point. So, that's a guy that comes out there for a smattering of snaps or to fill in when there's an injury. But I think Kupp will rock a lot of the snaps out there, a lot of them, especially when you're in 12 and 21 personnel. And specifically, as much as anything at that point, Thrill House, because of how he blocks. And that's going to be a big benefit to what he brings on the field in that way. Probably better than JVS, and I know he's better than Jackson Smith in that way. Snail says, you had me at defensive tackle. We're going to do a deep dive. We're going through the first 4 rounds of them, so we'll be taking a look at all the good ones at the top course: Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, Darius Alexander, Tyreek Williams, T.J. Sanders, Jordan Phillips, Jamari Caldwell, Joshua Farmer, Alfred Collins, Omar Norman Lott. That's a mouthful. Deion Walker, the big kid out of Kentucky, Nazir Stackhouse, the nose tackle. We'll be taking a look at all of them. We'll be getting into it. Jordan says, what is this team's ceiling if we draft the BPA left guard and possibly another right guard center? Kind of depends on who the BPA left guard is a bit, Jordan. I mean, because you could be there at 18 with the BPA technically being Tyler Booker, but then Tyler Booker's probably not a scheme fit for how he moves and what you want. In general terms, probably if I was to make a reasonable guess at this, I would say it would probably go something like Kelvin Banks at 18 would be your left guard, and then you would come back around and take Tate Ratledge in the second round. Something like that sounds kind of in a sort of a feasible place of things, Jordan, I would say, if I was to guess. Me, thank you for the $50 donation. I wasn't trying to prep you with that. I wasn't trying to press you on that, me. I just know I caught you late there, but thank you for the $50 donation. Me has been coming in so kind lately with so many big, huge donations. Brother, I salute you. I thank you. You're keeping the Hawks Nest running here through the off season. I appreciate it. You're keeping gas in the tank this off season so we can keep this car going down the road. And I really do, really do appreciate it. You're awesome. He says, got in late, but never too late to finish you off, B. Well, I thank you for that, man. You did indeed on that. And you've been so tremendous on all of your support. Very kind. I really do appreciate it. It's not no small thing here for the channel. These kind of donations and support you guys give to me here. I know it's the off season. Many people are in baseball. Many people are making summer plans. So football is not always at the forefront for everybody right now at this point. So I do appreciate those in here and chopping it up and throwing donos on here, supporting the channel, hitting the like button, doing what you guys do to help me out here. I really do appreciate it. And me, you're a hero, man. You're the channel's hero right now. Really appreciate you. Sean S. Brandon, who would you take at 18? I think the guys that stand out to me as far as, there is the sort of maybe it's on the outline of they're not quite reasonable, but if they could drop to us, I'd be all over them in an instant, guys. Tet McMillan, Will Campbell, Kenneth Grant. I think those are three guys that I just can't imagine are guys that are going to fall to you, but that I really do like a lot in this draft. And if they're there, I'm going to grab them. I think the guy that's continually been the guy to me that I think I'm a way higher on than a lot of other people, and maybe even people in this draft from NFL circles, that has been the guy that I just think would be a guy that would have me super stoked, where I would literally believe that we had gotten a difference maker, a potential blue chip player at 18, and that's going to be the kid out of Georgia, not Jalen Walker, but the other guy, Mykel Williams. I mean, if you got a Mykel Williams, you're getting a guy that gives you the power edge that's been missing on this team. You put him and Dexter Lawrence on either side on early rundowns. You are not running to the edges of the defense. He's got a ton of upside. He's super young. He'd be the guy to me that I could see him dropping a little bit too because he was injured through his last year and he didn't have necessarily the upper end production playing that Georgia defense. He's kind of the apple of the eye on that one a little bit for me. Dan says it's always funny to be when a few weeks before the draft, players start getting slandered left and right out of nowhere. Ted McMillan, for example, never heard problems before. I hadn't either. It's kind of why I wanted to bring up to War Chief on this one today, because he does have some of the connection in there and knows about the family there. And it does seem a little bit dirty, doesn't it? And we know some of these NFL teams will do some dirty stuff in that way. Thrill House Brando, news out of Hawaii, I heard, is no one showed up to Tet's birthday party. That's a great draft day reference. I love that. He says, my love is free for all, Brian. Let's go, me. You are the man, brother. You are the man. Chris is Tate in the second, his mullet in the third, his mustache in the fourth, Chris. A little orange stash that he's got going, a little wispy thin thing that he's trying to rock. Jordan says, sorry, Brandon, I meant with those players drafted, what is our record ceiling looking like and floor? Oh. Well, I mean, your hard ceiling would be a 12-win team to me. I don't think it's a realistic place. If we're staying more realistic with these kind of additions, Jordan, to me, they're really not like a guy like Mykel Williams, for instance. That's not necessarily an immediate return kind of guy. That's you're going for upside. You're going for the highest upside of guy you can get kind of from where you're drafting in that position. So I don't know if it would really affect the upside of the team in general in terms all the way around on this. 12 wins is your hard cap. for your ceiling. I think you're more aligned into being a team that's somewhere between 7 to 10 wins next year. 7 wins to 10 wins is somewhere where you're probably landing at next year. And it kind of doesn't matter, I think, in a lot of ways on what you do in this draft. It's like you go get a couple of interior offensive linemen in this draft. I could see it play out to where, okay, they go out there, they give you some immediate returns, they hit the rookie wall, you don't have the depth to call upon, Darnold gets hurt, you've had some wins early in the year, you fade out at the end of the season, boom, 7 wins, 8 wins. I think that's kind of the way that this thing sort of plays out in general terms. But the future's bright and their long-term things are going to be okay. I do just have a bit of a harder time with the thinking there's a real high ceiling to this team necessarily next year, in understanding, Jordan, that there's been a bit of a taking a step back approach to this offseason. So it makes sense. Step back, you're going to maybe have a couple less wins, but ultimately it will be what's for the best of the team. Do we need a good will check of Space? Are you doing okay, man? We need a good will check on Space. He might have popped out. He might have popped out for a second. Snail says, Genty at 18 bus has left the station. B, let's go. Let's go, man. Blue chip talent. I don't pass on blue chip talents at 18. That's just the general way that I roll. But as Brian says, we don't have to worry about it because Genty's not going to be there at 18. Not going to happen. Chris's stash needs to be a UDFA. I just can't waste multiple picks on hair. Let's go. Have a good night, HHG. Appreciate you. Me's definitely a keeper, Carmen. Definitely a keeper. And thank you as well for all your donos here to chat. HHG, you as well. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. All right, well, we'll wrap it up here on that note. Big thank you out here to, we got PGZ here. He's going to finish this up right here with one more dono. Thank you for that, PGZ. Says, B, dog, I got an orange cat. His name is Thor, and he just cries all the time for no reason. Any tips on getting him to shut up? You're in it now. I warned you, PGZ. I warned you what you get with these cats. She's the number one thing that everyone says about my cat, PGZ, when they come and they meet her and they're around her for a while. It's like, wow, she's really talkative. I mean, I literally taught my cat how to say water because she would just be so talkative where I'm just like, she's going to be saying stuff. I might as well try to get her to say things. Like if she's going to just be this naturally vocal. So really, you're just going to have to learn to have fun with it, PGZ. I've taught her, she's got three phrases, words in her reservoir. They're not like parrots. You're not going to get the 800 words. I got water. I got lay down for whatever reason, because she sometimes gets up and I lay down. And so she's learned to lay down. And then pets. Pet. You're saying it right now, actually. So she's learned all those 3. So you just, bridge the gap of communication between man and animal on this one. Take it as a way of you can be like a scientist on this one and start seeing if you can bridge that gap. I'm trying with her. She's going to be so freaking loud. I can just about touch her here and it's like pulling the doll string out. Like I just touched this part of her back and you guys are going to hear a little, It literally goes like that. You know what I mean? It's wild in that way, PGZ. But second I picked her up, she was a tiny little thing, brought her back home. The whole car ride in the little box they had them in, she they are built that way. There's a reason that these orange cats, they're known for they're almost like their own species of cat. And it's for the better. It's overall for the good, PGZ. But there's going to be a phase of getting used to this. It's a lot. They're a lot. That is for sure. You might have saw her all chilling on here. I'm like, oh, this one will chill too. No. Especially if you got the kitten version. Kitten version's like 200% of them turned up to the 9s. But hell of a pick, man. That's a great name for a cat. For an orange cat, Thor, perfect. But they settle down. It'll take about 5 or 6 years, but it'll settle down eventually. The other problem with this is you got a boy, and if the girls are a little amped up, the boys are on 11. They're on Spinal Tap 11, PGZ. So you signed up for this roller coaster ride. Strap yourself in. Hold on to the seats. It's going to be a little fun. Yeah, it ain't stopping on the talk, and I promise you that. He's going to be a vocal guy for a long time. But it's also kind of cool because you can get a little bit of a sense of their mood, PGZ, by their vocal. Like it's so much is vocalized that you can hear different things within it when you're kind of listening. You get used to kind of picking up on things with them. How's it going, Brian? And PG, thank you for the $5, man. Very kind of you as well. Being a member of the channel. You guys who donate to the channel, I know, are members in addition to that. So much support you guys bring to the channel. It's really appreciated, and I thank you for that. Space, we need space proof of life. Snail says, I never get running back in the first B. It's not fair. Hey, blue chip running back, baby. Maybe this year. Maybe he does dip and fall. Someday, man. Got Sean Alexander once. That only paid off for 1,800 yards in a season and setting touchdown records. Zach Goose says, I love my orange cat, but he's super traumatized because he got run over by a car when he was little. That's how we found him. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man. They're great cats. I'd always recommend an orange cat. They're definitely a handful. They're not just it's going to lay around and just, be lazy all day. They're going to be active. They're going to keep you on your toes. Split Face says, I'm the only one that hit the like button the last 10 minutes. Damn it, people, come on. Come on now. Hit that like button on the way on now. Hit that like button. Ross, try dating a human ginger. It's a lot. Well, Thrill House, they've been kissed by fire. And that's gonna cause them to be a little bit tuned up a bit, Comes with the package, as they say. I have a calico cat. She needs to be entertained constantly, super active. Ooh, calicos are good ones too. I had one when I was a kid on that. All those, it's weird how the colors of the cats all have a little bit of different personalities to them. You wouldn't think the colors would be affected, but it's weird that if you go between different ones, you get different kind of personality types. Snails, we only go to Super Bowl with an elite running back. Kenneth Walker, Snail. Get that line and Kenneth Walker becomes that guy. Brian says, redheads are my kryptonite. So many bad things. Brian's got some stories. Brian Eases, my daughter's cat is the chillest damn cat I've ever seen in my life. He and their dog are the besties. I try to get my cat with dogs. She's just not having that. But I would recommend owning a cat. They're fun. They're a lot of fun. All right, folks. Well, we will. It's an orange cat, Brian. Hell yeah. They're the best. They're the best. Black ones are good too. Black ones are just really super sweet and shy and gentle. Excuse me. Well, we'll wrap it up on that note here, folks. Big shout out to everybody in the chat again for great discussion today. Love the wide variance of discussion and keeping things kind of open and flowing as we do here. We will jam pack up the show here for this week. A lot of requests here for getting a Stanton on with the Seahawks draft blog. And so I think I will work to try to put a show together here for this next Sunday if Rob's down to do it and see if he wants to come on for a little bit behind Friendly Lines session here on the channel. Drop into some draft talk discussion and hash this out and get a little bit closer to an understanding point on who the Seahawks are going to take in this upcoming draft. So got the money to spend. Don't think the Hawks are going to be super aggressive in spending that dough, but got the money to spend if something does come up. Deal comes down the line. John's got that powder dry to go out there and let those cannons fire if something comes up that's very tantalizing for him to jump upon. But could definitely see the team just taking a patient approach, rolling a lot of this money into 2026 when it's all said and done. And that's one that I'd actually advocate for as a position, especially if you're not a team that's quite lighting the world on fire to start things off next year as you approach the trade deadline. But John's got, as he's approached this offseason, a lot of different directions he can go. We are not in a fixed path of this is the way this all has to break down to get this right, to get to a point of success. There's a lot of different things he can do. That's just the way it is when you have so much cap space moving into the future, when you're sitting on so much cap space right now, when you have 5 picks in the top 100 selections of the upcoming draft, you can move in a lot of different directions, and that should get you excited. Don't know when this is going to lock in and click in with the future, when the contending status hits. I think it is coming. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's a year out from now, but I do believe it's coming. We got too much damn ammunition for this thing not to take flight. So have the faith. Even if you find yourself to be one of those fans that walked in this offseason feeling like you've been a little bit kneecapped by their process and moving a Geno and moving a DK Metcalf and not addressing the interior of the offensive line, I get that. I do get that. We do keep the faith. I do think that they are moving and rolling in the right direction. For me, for Pumpkin, we thank you very much for watching today. Please, as you can, hit that like button, maybe sub on up on your way out of town here. We will be back here in just a mere 2 days with a couple shows on Tuesday, but until that time, please don't forget, And once again, big thank you, PGZ, me, Carmen, Schofield, Washington, Fishquest, Snow Tiger, Cameron, Space, Randall McDaniel. Thank you so much, Puppy, for all of your donations and support to the channel. You guys are amazing. Amazing. But don't forget, even if you're unsure about this next year, even if you didn't like the moves so far this offseason, even if you're wondering about that offensive line, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.